And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode. I'm starting to lose count. The next episode of the Stingers Up podcast. As always, I am your host, Christopher Raymond. And with me, joining me, is the awesome, ever amazing Mariam Abbas. Is it
Hi,
Abbas?
everyone.
Abbas? I apologize.
Yeah, it's Middle Eastern, it's Arabic, so however which way you want to say it works for me.
I mean, it's a cool name, so I just want to make sure I'm saying it right. Yeah.
It's funny, in high school, my math teacher, he used to call me Abbas. So, hey, Abbas. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's not the same now.
Hey, you got to live like a boss.
Right.
But nice. So how you doing, Mariam?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much for having me. I've been told for a good function of my life that I have a face for radio. So this is working perfectly fine for me.
Well, don't worry. Here at the Sacramento State orientation at the Stingers Up podcast as well, we all have faces for radio.
Yes, we do.
It's
yes,
like
we do.
it's a
Voices
compliment.
for it, too.
Yeah, yes. Well, it helps with the microphone. It helps with the microphone. But no, I'm glad to get you on here. I know it's been a little while since we talked. So little background. I know you just did graduate over the previous summer. So first off, congratulations. I know that's
you.
super awesome to hear. I know my graduation should hopefully be coming up shortly, presuming I don't mess up with the homework. But no, that's awesome. I super grats to you. I will give you a preliminary Stingers Up to that graduation.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
How does it feel to be fresh out of Sac State?
It's really something else given the 2020 year. I'm not going to even call it a pandemic because there's just been so many different things happening alongside COVID.
It's this giant mix now. Yeah.
It really is. So, aside from the regular and normal post-grad slump that I've heard about, I think it's very interesting how there's a lot more that I genuinely did not expect. But we're doing well. I would say my friend David used to say this. He used to say, I'm very happily fun employed. So I'm gonna steal that. So I am very fun employed right now.
There we go. Nice. I like that phrase. I feel like a lot of folks could probably use that right now. The fun employee. They should probably open up a fun employment office. I would like to work there.
That'd be awesome. The job that they give you, probably like working in a trampoline place.
It's like all the most fun job. You'd be the folks who bring in like the puppies for folks like students to hang out with. It's fun. It's fun.
I'd like to be a karaoke artist. Like I would not be like a regular singer, but like I get paid to like sing karaoke. That'd be a fun job for me.
I think if you are upfront about it, rather than like one of those like lip syncing kind of artists or whatnot, I think if you're upfront, you could probably do that. You could push that career. I
think so. I mean, if Wendy Williams was able to do it on The Masked Singer, have you seen that? It's a very interesting phenomenon that's happening.
I have not. I've heard of the show. I know the concept. You have somebody come out with some crazy like bird mask or something like that. I do love the costumes. I'll tell you that.
They're fun.
Yeah, and it ends up being like sometimes it's a musician, but from what I understand, most times it's just like a celebrity of questionable poputy.
Exactly. Yeah, they're like, you want to say maybe like C-list celebrities, anybody that they can. Yeah, sometimes it's more well known.
Sometimes it's just like I heard the musician guy from, was it David Letterman or something like.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, well, I guess he's famous. He's more famous than me, so that would make sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But no, that's so connecting that to karaoke. So you kind of, would you end up like rocking like a costume for your professional karaoke career?
Absolutely. I think my not my life dream, but maybe my Halloween dream for the last maybe 18 years has been to be the fairy godmother from Shrek. The
nice.
the red sparkly dress.
Yes.
The spiked
like,
up
the kind of like
spike hair.
Pointy, yeah.
Yes, exactly. With the glasses and the star one. That's been my Halloween dream. So I think that would be my My
your
uniform
persona.
for
There
yes,
we go.
exactly. For my karaoke persona, that'd be fun.
Nice. And like, I feel like that'd be a pretty easy or really easier thing to perform live. You're like, I already got the
Right,
script right there. It's on the
right.
screen. You could YouTube it. You could do folks stream karaoke? Because they should if they don't.
I think I haven't heard of streaming karaoke, but I have seen stream drag shows. So I
Okay.
would kind of assume it would
It's
go
a
very
precedent.
similar. Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Nice.
to
Yes,
be a drag queen.
I'm down with this. I think that's something that we need in 2020, especially now. Um,
Hmm.
if you think like the election's about right now-ish, which I don't know if we know. I keep saying that we should get both presidents in like a bunk bed, and like, um, and whether or not what we do, I'm like that way everyone wins.
That'd be fun to watch.
And they have to share a room. And there's a bunk bed in the White House. They like have to talk about comic books before they go to bed.
Right.
It'd be a very interesting 4 years. I'd be down for it. But
I like that. I like that. I can definitely visualize it. They should make a reality TV show. So like coming up to the election time, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
called
for
Our
2
Two
months.
Presidents.
There you go. There you go. They should have definitely like a reality TV show just following the presidential candidates. It'd be really
I
fun.
I would be down for that. I think they would have to take things a little less seriously. That being said, I don't mean to get too political, but dude, that would be great. I would love to watch that. Yeah, Our Two Presidents. What if life was?
Right.
What if they lived together as bunk beds? And then like they
Right.
wake up in the morning, kind of like, oh, what's up, man? Like, hey, you made coffee.
I think it would be very, very fascinating to see what kind of like candidates we would get. Because obviously, as of 2020, as of right now, we know exactly who the candidates are. There's one
Yeah.
Republican, one Democratic candidate that's running for office.
Yeah.
But if like next year comes around, next year,
Yeah.
in the
I
next
keep
4
saying
years,
that. I'm like, man, I remember last year.
no, right?
Yeah.
Last year. No, ma'am. It's 4 years. Oh, imagine if the elections every year. The drama.
I mean, if you're in the House of Representatives, you are in a two-term, like a 2-year
Right.
term. So you kind of are having like, I was saying like, man, you're constantly stressed about getting
About
reelected.
re-election. Exactly.
Yeah, you're like, I'm trying to pay attention to this issue. It's like when you're trying to pay attention in class, but you're like, man, I got like a pressing text message to take care of real quick.
Right. Oh my God. I used to be really bad at that when I was the first year in college because there was no rules.
Yeah.
Like you come in and it's
Mad
like,
Max.
okay, well, if you want to go to the bathroom, you can. You don't need to raise your hand.
Versus like high school or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I was like, oh my God, this is something else. Or like when somebody had like a radical opinion and they were like, Professor, actually, I think you're wrong. In my head, I was like, what are you doing? Disobeying the president or the professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something else. I was a first year college student too, so like it was a completely different experience for me than high school. So I'd never imagined how it would be.
That's how it was over at community college as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and in fact, it was kind of more extreme because in community college, it's just a lot of like, hey, just do the work. Like, what's the problem, kid? You're like,
Right.
I guess nothing. So you just get there and you're like, I guess I need to use the restroom. Like, yeah, my first year, I was just like, I'm just going to go take a break. Like, I would just walk around for 10
Right.
minutes, like call a recess, come on
Mm-hmm.
back. Like, just when, like, I sat like right in the middle of the room. So it was one of those like, hey guys, I'm back. Like,
Right.
what's up? What I miss? Like sipping my coffee.
No, right. You can bring food to class or like a
Yes.
drink.
Yeah.
Or you can skip class altogether and nobody would really ask where you are. You know what I mean?
I think that was the biggest epiphany. It was like, oh my God, no one cares about my whereabouts.
Right.
I mean, people do, I guess, but yeah, like the teacher's not going to be like, hey man, you're an adult, you don't have to be here. And you're like, you're right, I don't.
Right.
And then you get those professors who say like, hey, I'm not really going to take points for attendance. And you're like, tell you what, it's been great meeting you. My name is Chris. If you see me around, say hi.
You don't know me.
Yeah, no, that was I had a class like that my first semester at Sac State. It was a really cool class. It was, I don't remember the title. The professor was awesome. Like, I don't mean it like bad. Yeah, she was like I kind of hung out for like, I think like 2 sessions. It was an archaeology class about like ancient Mexico. Really cool stuff. But
Okay.
yeah, she was like, hey, so I'm not gonna lie, you don't need to show up to pass this class. All the exams, like everything you could think of is online. And I was like, cool. Like, I'm a commuter student.
Deuces.
I'm
Right.
out. I did all the work. I did great in the class,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was like, okay, bye. Like, and then I had to awkwardly avoid Benicia Hall for the rest of the semester because I'm like,
Right. It's like that scene from Shrek when he like dragged himself into the bush and it's like nobody ever saw me. That's how I feel sometimes.
yeah,
I there was one semester where I had two upper division philosophy classes. So well, the first one was philosophy of art and the other one was philosophy of feminism. So they're both so one of them was a Monday, Wednesday class at
mhm.
like 10 a.m. and the other one was at a Tuesday, Thursday class at like 12. And one time I messed up the dates and the time. I was like, yeah, the Monday, Wednesday one starts at 12. So I walked to class and I'm like, why is like nobody here? And then the next day, same kind of thing, messed up the class. And I
Yeah.
saw my professor that I quote unquote missed class of, like,
Mhm.
and they walked right past me and I was like, oh my God, they think I skipped class on purpose.
Oh
And I went
no.
into their office hours. I
You're
was
like,
like,
I'm so
listen,
sorry.
I love your class so much. I'm just
Yeah.
so sorry. I messed up. It was like the first week class. So they were pretty understanding, but it happens so often. Oh my God. Well, now we don't have to worry about that.
I mean, it's different though. Like, you still kind of do. I know I haven't had it this semester, but back in the spring, like especially right when things switched over. Oh my, I'd be like,
Hmm.
wait, when is that one session I have to go to? Or you'd be
Right.
like, oh man, I thought it was at 9. It was at 8. Whoops, missed that one.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, good thing it's recorded. But
Right.
yeah, I had that. I would have that a lot when we'd come back from like spring break. I would be
Hmm.
like, all right, like go to like, because the chemistry building is like 5 billion floors, and so you're like, okay, what lab? What floor is my lab
Which
on?
one?
And you're like,
Hmm.
and you go to like some other room, and you're like, oh my god, this isn't even the right room. No wonder no one's here.
Have
Um,
you been in the wrong class before? Like, have you walked in and you're like, this is not class?
I don't think I've ever sat down and straight up gotten into like the lecture. Like, I've never been one of those
Hmm.
folks where the teacher's like, hey, so just so everyone knows, this is English
Right.
101.
Hmm.
Have you?
I have not, but I've
Okay.
been in situations where I'm in the right class and then somebody realizes that they're not in the right class.
Yes.
I get secondhand embarrassment really bad. Like I just feel really bad for them. I feel for them. The sympathy and the empathy just like click.
Yeah, no, I've definitely done that, as well as I feel like it's more painful the folks that are trying to get into a class, or like they're trying to
Right.
crash the class. So they're just,
Mm.
they're not on the wait list. They're like, you know what, I got an opening, or hey, I'm bored and I'm trying to fill the time. I did invite a friend to join a class because it was, what was it, like anthropology, and I was like, it was like Anthem 101. So, a fairly common course. So, like, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's,
Hmm.
there's got to be room. Like, come join me
Right.
if you got time. And she still needed it for her GE stuff. So I was like, hey,
Right.
bam, I'll use my orientation skills. Be like, get you some credit, come join the class. And then, oh my God, there was like 30 people trying to add. And,
Hmm.
and I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry for making you
So sorry.
here.
I've definitely stole somebody's class before. Not stole, but like it would be the first like week of the semester and I
Yeah.
really need to crash a class. And I've definitely sat down before in a seat where somebody else was more deserving. But I was not about to let that class go. Like, no, no, no. It was the perfect time with the perfect professor. I'm not
Oh
leaving.
yeah, no, I know
I'm
those
sorry.
ones. You're like,
Yeah.
this has to happen. I don't know who I have to give a $20 bill to,
Right.
because I'm a student, so I can't really give good bribes. It's got to be like a nominal token bribe, but
Hmm.
$20 is always my token. Like, good,
Right, right.
like
I
it's
mean,
easy.
a $20 bill is a hefty bill sometimes. You
Like,
know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
I probably should only bribe like $10, but that means I have to get the 20 and go to a store and break the
Right.
20. And
Mhm.
man, I'm a student. I ain't got that time.
Right. Right.
Especially now, that might give me COVID. But
Period. Right. Exactly.
but no, I've definitely had times where I'm like, the science labs are notorious for, like, the more upper ones are notorious for having like really rough wait lists, mostly just
So I've
because
heard.
you know, due to safety, you can only have so many people in a room, like even before
Right.
COVID and stuff like that. So I've definitely been in a room where I've, you know, been one of 6 people and the teacher looks at you and is like, well, all 12 people showed up. So have a good semester. And you're like, all right. And then I had one where I was actually handed the permission number. Like everything was looking good. You're like, yes, I'm gonna get this class. And like they had drawn my name from a hat. Like it was straight, and you're like, okay, cool. Like I happened to be the lucky one. I got my number. I'm like, nice. I think I'd already sent out a text message to a buddy, like, thanks for being awesome today. And oh my God, then the person showed up. And I was just like,
I dislike that system completely. Like the whole like by chance system. If that's something that we implement, then why the heck do we have a numbered wait list? You know what I mean?
well,
And it bothers me so much. And obviously, as orientation leaders, we know that the wait list disappear like a couple days before the semester begins. So technically, the number doesn't really play a big role unless a professor is really smart and like takes a photo of it or like has a copy of it, and they're like, well, 1, 2, and 3, they came here first. Like they were wait list.
Well, I think they have a copy because I know they'll be like, oh, we have a copy, just you don't have a copy. And I'm like, well,
sometimes, not all the time. I've learned.
I will take your word for that.
Right. Yeah. I had a very good experience with, there was this one semester where I was trying to get a class and I couldn't get in for the first day. And then the second day, like I tried again.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know, I probably not going to even get this class. So I tried for another class. Also, like it was the same semester and I just needed one more class to be at 15 units. And I'm like, bro, this is so hard. And so I went for the other class because I had like a list of backups, as one does, you know?
Yeah.
And the second class also wasn't working out. And so it was the second week of the semester. So I had to like decide. I needed to like choose.
Because it's like you run out of time to even get a class on.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like some professors have already assigned some homework for the second week. So I was like, oh, this is going to be difficult. So it was the second week and I stumbled onto one of my friends and they're like, bro, like one of my classes is like basically completely empty and it's a GE. Like, do you want to crash? And I'm like, what class is it?
Yeah.
They said sociology of pop culture. I was like, sign me up.
I'm in.
Class.
Yeah.
It was so much fun because if I can recommend one class that all Sac State students take just for fun, it's sociology of pop culture. It was so much fun.
Nice.
So much fun. You learn about the weirdest things, but in the best way possible. You know, like within the first week of classes, we learned about like cosplay and furries.
So it's just kind of like all pop culture.
Fandom.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking music initially.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was like everything.
That's cool.
There was one class where we talked about like music sampling and how sometimes you hear a song and you're like, this sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
And then you've come to find out that 17 other songs spread out over decades use the exact same sample. And it's very interesting like that. I learned so much and it was so much fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that class.
Nice. And it was sociology of pop culture?
Correct. I think it's Soc 135. I think that's what it's numbered still, I believe.
For those Hornets listening and they're curious about what class to take for the upcoming spring semester, look for Soc, was it 165?
Heavily endorsed by Mariam Abbas.
There we go. StingersUp podcast approved.
There we go.
Yes.
Exactly.
Now I took over at American River, I took history of rock and roll, which was it kind of like your description of the sociology class kind of fit the same thing. Like you just showed up and you just learned cool stuff. And I'm unashamedly into rock music already. So I was like, dude, I just get to show up and listen to the Beatles for 2 hours.
Right.
And then he's going to give me trivia in between songs. Like, okay, it's like a live radio show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was so much. The trivia part is the best part. You just brought up a memory from that class. So we'd have the exam, and it's like a paper exam.
Yeah.
And then on the last page, it was like a 27 question trivia page. I remember I think I took it in 2018. That's when I took that class.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the questions is how many times does what's that one song? How many times does Gucci Mane say Gucci Mane in his song Gucci Mane? And I was like, and because the song goes Gucci Mane, Gucci Mane, what, something like that. I said Gucci Mane or Gucci, I don't know, but it was something like that. And I was like, this is one question.
Do you know how many times?
I got it wrong,
now
but I guess it was
curious.
like 27 or something like that. And I'm like, I doubt that. There was another question where it's like, can you spell the name of the football player that took a knee during an NFL game? Obviously, we know his name. We know it's Colin Kaepernick. But can you spell his last name? And that was tricky.
There's like a Q somewhere in there.
Right. Is it a C? Is it a K?
I think it's a silent M.
Yeah,
somewhere.
That was about right.
Yeah. It's Himalayan.
Right.
Yes.
Right. No one knows though.
Yeah, no one knows. That sounds like a really cool class though. That was awesome. And so was that how many times a week did you have that?
I think it was a two times a week.
Usual two times a week type deal.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Standard 3-unit class. But tell me about your is it you said history of rock and roll?
Yes. Yeah. So that was it was only one time a week. So that's why I asked. So but it was on Friday. So I didn't have any other classes on Friday. Admittedly, I live fairly close to American River compared to Sacramento State. So it was like, oh yeah, that's just like about 10-15-minute drive. 10 if I'm like really gassing it. But so it's like, oh cool, this is a really casual like morning. You kind of show up. The teacher just loved rock, and it was like in this giant, I think it was in a music hall like room. Wow, okay. So it was like a huge class size, and you're like, all right. And I had like 4 or 5 friends. I was at commercial recording program at the time. That's where I got these sick mic skills. But that's actually why I had these originally. But yeah, I had like 4 or 5 friends, and we're all music majors at the time, so we're like, yeah, this is awesome. And yeah, like I said, every week we just showed up and just listened to music, and it was, from what I remember, fairly chronological. So you kind of start off with what are the roots of rock and roll, kind of looking at like,
that was going to be my next question, is how was it set up? Because those are fun like that, where it's like, oh, we start in the 60s, we continue on to the 70s. That would be fun. Yeah,
and I think it even started earlier than that. But yeah, that's pretty much how it went. Because kind of like laid the foundations of years ago now. But I think it was like pre-rock. It kind of was like, where did rock come from? Like and then pretty much jumped into like 40s, 50s, 60s, and then just running all the way through. And it was about a week a decade, like maybe 2 weeks a decade if something had a lot of material. But it was really cool. I think that would be the way to do it, or just having pure chaos, no order to it. You're just like, here's a song, and you just give them like pure DJ status.
I was thinking it would be really cool if it was like a band a week, like learn about like Led Zeppelin for a week. And everything they ever
kind of was that. Like I think he focused on like certain bands. Like is that Abbey Road in the background?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Speaking of which, we definitely had a week dedicated to just the Beatles. I think he was a self-described hardcore Beatles fan, so he was like, I could probably do this for a month.
It's really hard not to talk about the Beatles for a really long time, especially if you are remotely a fan. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of really cool history.
They do, and it's so much. They spanned a really long time of them just like making music, just like putting out stuff like for so long. And it's interesting when you go in individually and basically assess each one of their like their music careers or even their personal lives. I think my favorite Beatle is Ringo Starr, purely because he's just like, he's adorable. He's just in the background on his little drum set, just going to the ping.
He's just the drummer. He's just kicking it. He just wants to play drums, man.
Right, and he's one of the 2 only living Beatles, so there you go. But John Lennon has such an interesting childhood, and like you talk about um, being abandoned by his parents. Oh my God, such a long story.
Really,
And then
I'm not too familiar with his life history, like his early background. Like I know he's in the Beatles and all the public
right.
information, but was he really like abandoned by his parents?
So like his parents, his
Not to
mom
put
was
them
an
on the spot.
alcoholic. No, right,
Yeah,
right. If I understand correctly, obviously I'm not a historian
we're
whatsoever.
gonna get sued by the
However,
John Lennon
I'm
estate.
very no, right. I'm very interested in John Lennon's life. I really wanted to be him when I was a child. Like whenever somebody asked, like, if you could have dinner with somebody dead or alive, who would it be? My first question was just John Lennon. Like
I
that's
used to
it.
rock some John Lennon glasses back in high school.
Oh, me
Yeah,
too. Oh,
yeah.
I love that man so much. But yeah, if I understand correctly, his mom was an alcoholic, and his dad was not like he didn't want to be in the
Yeah,
picture,
yeah,
and therefore his aunt, so his mom's sister,
yeah.
took care of him.
Oh, okay.
Right, and then later on, John discovers that his mom actually lives pretty close in the area where he lives, and
Hmm.
he wants to start creating a connection.
Yeah,
Um,
connecting. Yeah.
Exactly. This story ends up he connects with his mom,
Hmm.
and then she passes away very suddenly.
Oh no.
One just right when the Beatles were about to start forming.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, Ringo wasn't in the picture at that time. It was just him, Paul, and they had just met George.
Gotcha.
And then his mom passes away, and then his aunt that was taking care of him also passes away. So it's
Oh,
like, right,
it was a
exactly.
pretty
So all
rough
of his
time for, yeah.
exactly, and I think he was like barely 18 or something
Oh
like
man.
that. So little John was not,
Yeah.
he did not have a fun time. But
Well, careful. Lil Jon was
handled
actually a
it.
different artist, who I don't believe
Right,
Lil
right.
Jon was in the Beatles, though that would have been a great band still.
That would have been great band. No, right. Sometimes I think about people that existed at the same time together. Have you seen those like all over the internet? Like Martin Luther King Jr. existed within the same time span as oh my God, who am I thinking of? Anne Frank. Anne Frank was alive at the same time that MLK
I
was
mean,
around.
that makes sense. I mean, granted, they probably weren't in the same social circles, but
Right, right.
but yeah, it makes sense because MLK was, let's see, what was that? Was that the 50s or the 60s? I'm so bad at history right now.
Well,
Um,
he
he
was
influ-
very prominent in the '60s with the civil rights movement, right? But however, when he was like a younger
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
MLK,
Like, because he was like what in his 40s or 50s when he was assassinated. So you think, okay, like
right?
50 years prior to the 60s type deal.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly. I know.
Um, I think kind of going back to the history of rock and roll. Sorry, I'm going to jump back and forth. I think one of my favorite Beatles stories was when my teacher was talking about what's that guy's name? Bob Dylan. I was gonna say the guy who
Bob
has the
Dylan.
songs with the words that are just kind of thrown in there.
Right.
I love Bob Dylan, but yeah, the story of I think it was Bob Dylan telling the Beatles like, "Hey, you should really write better song. Like you guys should write like grown-ups. Stop writing like little
Oh
kids."
wow.
Um, and it kind of makes sense. Like if you look at some of the earlier work, it is pretty like it's very how did my teacher describe it? High schoolish, like, oh, I like
Very.
this girl, I want to hold your hand. And
Right. Well,
great songs.
they started at like that age. They were
Yeah,
all
like,
like I think Paul was maybe like 15 or 16
yeah.
when the Beatles like first started.
No, they were
Um,
definitely super young. And keep in mind, this is coming
mhm.
from Bob Dylan.
Right,
Like this
right,
was them meeting at like some music festival or whatever,
right.
and they're like, oh, hey man, like I like your music, I like your work too, and he's like, what you guys should start doing is kind of like honestly writing, put a little more writing effort into it type deal,
Right. He
and they're
said a
like,
piece of advice.
yeah, and they're like, yeah, sounds good, Gramps. As soon as you get rid of those acoustic guitars. And it was like, oh, and then sure enough, the Beatles started actually writing their songs with a little more complexity. And then sure enough,
Right.
Bob Dylan started using electric guitars.
Yeah,
So
interesting. I
they,
like that. I've never heard that story.
yeah, it was a cool, interesting story, and I like to picture it.
Hmm.
Because it was like, oh yeah, bro. Well, why don't you start using electric guitars? And then they're both like,
Right.
yeah. And then I imagine them later in the hotel like, that's not a bad
we
idea. Let's
need to reevaluate. They said,
yeah. Can you get
"Mom,
a notepad and some pens? That'd be great. Thank you.
you know, if that's I don't doubt that that's a true story. But if you think about it, if they went from like, I want to hold your hand, or she loves you, yeah, and then they went and said like, we all live in a yellow submarine, and I'm like,
Yeah, well, sometimes other substances may have influences on the writing as well.
absolutely. But we don't talk about that here.
Yeah, we don't, but we do acknowledge them, especially at the time of the 60s.
Right.
But no, I loved that class. That class was the highlight of my week. I was taking like a bunch of other courses, but like I said, it was every Friday, so you just kind of showed up, and it was like the ending of your week, is you just got to kind of hang out with your friends. I think it was in the fall, so like the weather was pretty good to like, in the morning chill. It was like 9 to noon, so it was like, hey, what's up? Let's get our coffee, get our rock on, and get out of here.
Just hang out.
Yeah, pretty much.
That sounds fun. It sounds like a weekly hangout. It reminds me of when my brother goes and plays Dungeons and Dragons with his friends every Monday.
Nice. Do you play Dungeons and Dragons?
I tried. I attempted one time.
There we go.
Very, very complex game. Honestly, kudos to whoever has the attention span and the creativity, and it's such a beautiful game. No wonder it's lived this long.
It is. I think that's really it right there, is you have to have everyone who's on the same like creativity page. You can't have someone who's just like, I'm here to roll the dice and move my piece. Yeah, I played it a little bit back, I don't want to say back in the day. Valet kept saying it in the before time, which is like the time before COVID started. So somewhere in the before time, I played Dungeons and Dragons. And I think I was the dungeon master, if I remember right, because I bought the set. So I was like, hey guys, I paid for it. I get to make the call here.
It's mine.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be the dungeon master. And
it's like when you're the bank when you buy the Monopoly game.
Yes. You're like, I get to be the banker. I'm so paper green money rich right now. Or I guess money's already green. Blue money rich. There we go. But yeah, no, it's a really cool game, and I remember having fun because it was around the time that I was like, I play bass all the time, so I remember like having my guitar. I think I was like 17 at the time, and it was really cool. And I just remember my buddy, he wanted to like chop the heads off of everything. He was like, I want to do that, and I don't think there's anything in the rules where it's like to do this. And I was like, I made the D&D call, and I was like, tell you what, grab that dice, make this roll. If you roll better than like a 4 or whatever, you did it. I'm like, but if you roll if you roll too low, man, you like damage your sword. So and then like I just remember looking back at the notes, like I found the set years later, and I was like,
the rules that you wrote.
Yeah, and like it wasn't even the rules. I just found his log list, and it was nothing but just like all the heads he had been collecting of like a goblin and like a like all these like Dungeons and Dragons monsters and stuff like that. But they'd be like, oh, we fought a beast or something. Apparently, I'm not that dungeon master creative right now, but
we fought John Lennon in Dungeons and Dragons, just to bring it back.
Yeah,
that's why he's dead.
Yeah, the story you heard about the New York incident was actually just a cover story. What really happened was a tragic incident involving dice and a dungeon master. And Ringo Starr may or may not have been there.
You're right, exactly. That could be the reason why he's still alive today. He just doesn't want to share the story.
It's true. Actually, maybe that information is keeping him protected. They're like we can't touch him because they have like some British lawyer who's going to release it.
Some intel, yes, exactly.
Yes, intel. I like this. I like how this is going. Yeah. So yeah, I think way back when, earlier in the conversation, we were kind of talking about like the post-grad slump or something like that. So I guess like overall, I just kind of want to ask, like, what have you been doing to fill your time since? I know it's only been a couple months. It's not like it's like, hey, it's been 10 years. Like,
oh my God. But when you're bored, those 2 months turn into 17 years, I've learned. However, I have decided to expand my hobbies. I've been putting a 1,000-piece puzzle of El Capitan. It's fairly difficult,
and just
but I'm enjoying my time doing it.
And you mean by El Capitan, you mean El Capitan, rather. The mountain or the rock face is a mountain in Yosemite?
It's in Yosemite.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know the proper phrase for it, but the feature in Yosemite.
There you go. That's a good word. That's a
Yes.
good word. The feature,
Yes.
the landmark found in Yosemite Valley. But yeah,
Nice.
it's basically the picture is just a rock on the right hand side and a rock on the left hand side. You have a
Uh-huh.
little creek
Sounds
with
quaint.
pebbles, and then the rest of the picture is just the sky. Which
Okay.
the picture is so beautiful. However, when you're assembling it, you're like, okay, does this gray piece, is
Oh my
it the
God. Does
rocks
this
on the
rock look like
right?
that
Is it
rock?
the
Or
rock on the left? Oh my God. And then the sky is clear blue skies, which obviously that's what you want to see when you go to Yosemite,
but
but
there's
that's
not,
not what you want
it's
to
hard to
see
tell, does this
in the
piece of
puzzle.
sky go here or
Right
there, or just, you
there.
should just like cut them and you're like, yeah, they're all blue, all the sky pieces, you just glue
No,
them in.
right. Oh my God. And the worst part about it is that
Yeah.
the sky is reflected onto the creek. So it's like, is this the water or is this the sky? I don't know what to do. So yeah, it's coming along very
You're like,
nicely.
to de-stress about my puzzle that was supposed to not be stressful, I actually had to
Right,
go to Yosemite
right.
and visit El
Get an
Capitan.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's one of the hobbies that right now I'm working
Nice.
on. It's been nice. It's been
Yeah.
nice. One of the more um, how can I phrase this? The more expensive hobbies that I found is I started collecting records.
What?
I
Nice.
Right, yeah, I started with a small record collection of
Uh-huh.
like secondhand records that my friend's mom actually gave me.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, so it was really nice. It was like a
Yeah,
couple
so you
of
kind of like a little starter kit, if you
right,
will.
and
Yeah.
it was a good starter too. It was like Al Green and the Commodores and like a
Hmm.
couple of Beatles records. I was like, this is good stuff. Oh my God, there was
Nice.
Stevie Wonder in that little group. So I was like, okay, I have a good base. Let me
Nice.
start building on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's wonderful. I've been buying records. Some are used, some are newer.
Oh, that's
There's this
cool.
amazing little record spot that
Uh-huh.
I kind of stumbled on in Midtown Sacramento. It's on R Street. So the letter R, like Richard, not our street. A lot of people have gotten that wrong somehow. Uh, but R Street, there's a little shopping center inside
Mhm.
of a building. So you walk in thinking that you're going to go in a building, but it's a
And then
little like marketplace.
okay, okay. Yeah.
And so at the very end of the corridor is this little record shop. And I like going there very much
That's
for the
cool.
records. It's a
Yeah.
vintage record store.
Nice.
However, I stay because of the person that owns it. His name is Marty,
Uh-huh.
and he's been there for a really long
Shout out to
time.
Marty.
Shout out to Marty. And every time I go in there, he's like, "Do you know who holds the longest record of like Holland fame?
Oh, that's
Something about
cool.
some
Yeah,
really cool music."
yeah. And you're like, I do not, but I would like to know.
I don't, right, exactly. Or like when he tells me he used to go to all these shows for like $3 a ticket, and I'm like,
Oh,
wow.
the,
Yeah,
the
he's an
real
older
before time.
gentleman. Yes, the
Yeah.
real before time. Oh, and he has all these wonderful stories about him going with his now business partner, but he was like his
Yeah.
best friend.
Yeah.
And he used to go to all these shows, and like he used to tell me like they would get in their like janky car back in like the 70s
The
to
old
drive up to
hoopty.
Oakland. Right,
Ooh, oh
exactly.
yeah, real hoopty status. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Can I
So
say hoopty on? Let me look at my lawyer who doesn't exist.
who doesn't exist exactly?
It's
Can
just
you
a
do
mirror looking back at me. But yeah.
that? I mean, you are a one-man show.
Yeah,
It's
I am
working pretty
I'm the
well.
one man crew right now.
There you go. But yeah, so I started collecting records. It's nice when you know some backstory to
Yeah.
the music. You
The
know what I mean?
music or that making of even that album itself.
Right,
You know, like,
exactly.
yeah.
One of those albums is like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Like just knowing
That's a good
all the
one.
drama that went on when they were writing that album up. Like them, like what was the story? Like they had a cabin or like somewhere they went secluded,
Uh-huh.
and for like 2 months, and they were writing the records. But at that time, they all had relationships with one another.
Yeah.
There's two female artists in the group and two male artists, if I remember correctly, and they just, it was a very interesting time.
Yeah. Was that when Tom Petty
Exactly.
was hanging around?
I
'Cause
think so.
I know he was
I think so.
involved in kind of their earlier days.
I think so. I believe so. And
Yeah,
yeah. So
nice.
they were writing that. They basically wrote songs about one another, just like dissing each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is heavy, and you can kind of hear it in the music too. Like, you did me so dirty,
Yeah,
or like,
yeah,
I can't believe you did this.
that's
Um,
funny.
right, exactly. It's beautiful, and like coming out of Marty's mouth, because
Uh-huh.
you know when you meet those people who just exude so much confidence and knowledge that no matter what they say to you, you will believe it.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that
Oh,
he
that's
can
cool.
tell me that like Bruce Springsteen is his second cousin removed, and I'd be like,
And
oh
you're
my
like,
god, that's so
dude,
awesome.
nice. I believe you. Like,
Right.
what
Like,
kind
can
of
I go to
soda does he
Thanksgiving
like?
dinner?
Yeah,
Right. No, right.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, he's just one of
Oh,
those
that's
people. So
cool.
it's purely buying the record after like learning so much about it from this beautiful, wonderful human being, and just like having it in my room. Oh my god, I bought even like a one of those box crates for the for the record.
Oh, yeah, the old
Um,
classic look to it.
right.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. I bought it off. I had to assemble it myself. It was uh,
Ooh,
pure pleasure and joy. It was so much
nice.
fun.
Yeah, I think that, what do you
Yeah.
call that? Like small M meaning? Like
Right.
the psychology
Right.
back in the day.
Back in the
Yeah,
day, in the old days.
back in the
But
old day,
yeah,
that
it's
one semester when I took psych.
the one semester. I never took psych, but I hear about it.
Yeah, biochem major, it's not really high up there on the curriculum.
Nope. Don't even get me started as a comms major. I don't even know what I studied. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I joke. Oh, but yeah. So basically, yeah, that's the purpose of my life is just
Yeah,
finishing up the puzzles and listening
that's
to some
cool.
really cool records.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. That's how
So
life has been.
what kind of record player did you get? Did you already have one, or did you get
Okay,
one kind of like for the hobby or whatnot?
that's an excellent question.
Mm.
I actually, the record player that I got
Mm.
was a Christmas present from one of my really good, my
Oh,
best friend
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Um, this kind of stumbles into another story. So I have one of my friend groups is me and two other people, so it's a 3-person friend group.
Okay,
Um,
the trireme
and
group.
we've been very close for a really long time.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of ups and downs, very much like Fleetwood Mac. um, but the one thing that we are very consistent on
Uh-huh.
is getting each other excellent presents. So
Oh,
like if
nice.
it's for birthdays or mainly Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
somehow like
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is a great time for us to get like each other presents. We're
Yeah,
very good with like knowing what the
like a
other person
good,
subliminally
thoughtful.
wants.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I got my first record player from my best friend for Christmas.
Cool.
Um, yeah, it was a
Nice.
wonder.
Does it
I
have
was
like
literally
the
staring
old
at it.
school look, or is it kind of one of more? Because I know like these days you can get a record player that looks modern on the outside, but kind of
Right.
still has the same like guts, if you will.
Hmm.
But then you get the ones that look really what's the word, vintage.
Right. Right. No, I think it's one of the newer models. So it's a Crossley record player. So
Hmm.
it's not like the most expensive or the most like crazy in your face music like a like record, but it's a record player for like beginner
Yeah.
records.
I mean, and it sounds
Yeah.
like it gets a job done. As long as you
Uh-huh.
can take a record, put it on there, have the little needle thingy, and then
Right.
suddenly music comes out of a speaker,
But
you're good.
it's magic. It's like magic, and I can
Yes.
never. I think it has something to do with like the grooves of the record.
It's all the pops and stuff like that, and it's crazy because I remember back in the day when I was doing more of the commercial recording, we would have like days where we would discuss that, like what makes a record feel that way, and there's um like programs and stuff that you can buy. Like let's say you're recording music and stuff
Right.
digitally, there's programs you can do to like try to mimic the, what do they call it, the warmth of the
Mhm.
records. Yeah.
Right.
But no,
Right.
it's so much different listening to it than like, let's say,
It is.
on like a CD or an MP3 or something like that.
Right. And I've been trying. So I did it with this guy one time, and
Hmm.
he was like, I just don't understand your fascination with records. And I'm like, like it just feels different. Like you sit
Yeah.
down and you listen to an album front to back. And he goes, well,
Yes.
you can do that if you just plug in your Spotify into your aux. And I'm like, oh, No, I can't. This
Yeah,
is
but
horrible.
I feel like it's so much more sterile when you're doing it digitally. You know what I mean? Like,
Kind of.
yeah, you're true. Like, and I guess I mean that in a bad way. Like, you know, like if I wanted to listen to like a Led Zeppelin album, I totally
Right.
could just pull up YouTube and you know, that would definitely take care of it if I had the song stuck in my head, right?
Right.
Which I'm sure we can all relate to.
Right.
But it's different, yeah, when you're sitting there and listening to it, and especially if you have an appreciation like you're mentioning for the album itself. Like I'm pretty big on like,
Exactly.
no, they put those tracks together in that order for some whatever reason. I
Right.
don't know what it is, but hey, I might as well listen to it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, no,
Exactly.
it doesn't match up. Like you can get kind of close when you're listening to like those really high quality like files in the studio, but
Hmm.
that's, you know, you got to be in the studio for that.
It's partly. I think you're very correct in that it makes the experience kind of sterile when, like, let's say you're in your car and you put in your phone, or like you put in a CD, or
Yeah,
like whatever it is, and you're listening to it. It almost feels. I mean, if that's somebody's life and joy, like,
yeah,
good for you. And in a lot of times it is mine too. Like, I love
yeah.
music. It's
Oh,
my
you know, don't get me
favorite
wrong.
thing.
I listen to music all the
Right.
time,
All
and
the time.
most of the time it's
Right.
not on records.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. But when you get a moment to like try to like look through your records, or like you're in a record store and you're looking through the records and you find one, like you said, and it's like it's
yeah,
very like catered for an audience to be this specific way, whether that's the album or whether that's
yeah.
how many like records.
You
Because
get like
sometimes,
the
there's
lyric
like
lists on there, and you're like, this is
exactly the
awesome.
poster that they chose in it, whatever it is, and then you put it in your record player and it's
Yeah,
playing, and it's just that when you hear the like the needle going over it,
yes,
with the music. It's a very nice feel to it. It
yeah.
kind of also reminds me of that nostalgic feeling when. Have you ever seen Lilo and Stitch, when
I
Lilo
have
is like
probably too
has
many,
the
but
record
yes,
play right,
yes,
has the record player and she's listening to Elvis on the ground, like playing it, like that.
yes.
To me, that's like
Yeah, weren't
she's
they?
very actively listening.
Was it Elvis? Weren't they
It
Elvis
was
records?
Elvis.
Yes.
Exactly. So it takes me back to, it makes
Yeah,
me feel like, okay, I'm present in that moment, just like Lilo was when she was
yeah.
like appreciating a good Elvis
No,
record when she was mad at her sister.
yes. Those
Right.
photos are from my Blue period.
Right.
God, I love that movie. But yeah, no, I think it just gets you that much more connected with music, at least when you're sitting there.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do think you kind of have to meet it halfway. You have to be somebody who has that music appreciation. But I would
Right.
highly recommend, if there's anyone listening who hasn't listened to records, I get it if you don't have a record player, but like try to find some way to listen to it. Find a friend who's got one.
Right.
I'll shout out to Sacramento State. I think they sell record players in the bookstore as well as
Do
records.
they?
Yes, it's over there by the start, like the whatever the coffee
Right. The electronic
counter is
section.
in
I
there.
would
They do have a
imagine.
small section because I remember noticing it. I was waiting in line, and I was like, "Oh, that's super cool."
Nice.
So if anyone doesn't even know where to get one, I mean, I guess Amazon, you can find anything there.
Right.
But highly recommend listening to music over records.
It's
I would say
fun.
pick
It's a
your
fun
most favorite
experience.
album. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think they had an NWA album there. It was the Straight Outta Compton album. I was like, oh my god!
Ah,
Like I
classic.
almost bought it. I almost bought it. I was like, oh.
I love that. It's also it's a very cool experience when you go out of your way to like go to a record store and buy a
Yes.
record that you like always wanted to hear like the whole way through, or maybe a record that you actually know the whole way through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
No,
So
and it's go on.
go ahead.
And I was gonna say it's really cool that you have that experience too of
Hmm.
the record store, because I think that's a lot. That's something that
Right.
really doesn't exist very often, or like as commonly
Right.
as a better way to say it as it used to. I know
Right.
growing up, like there would be Tower. You know, you'd be like, oh, let's go to
Hmm.
Tower, and then what was the other one that kind of replaced it? Like Dimple.
Dimple.
Yeah, Dimple
Right.
was kind of cool. But it wasn't like a record store. It was just like half the time the
Hmm.
folks are just honestly didn't seem like they wanted to work there at the time. And so you didn't have that stuff, the interaction that you're talking about with Marty in the shop you go to, where it's like,
Marty.
yeah, the
Hmm.
Marty. I mean, he kind of is the Marty now. He seems like this
He's the
very,
Marty. He's the
like,
man.
I now
Oh,
have him on a pedestal.
right.
But no, I think that is a real big part of the experience. I know there was another one
Very much
downtown.
so.
What was it called? Was it like the Groove, or is
The
that?
groove. The groove is a yes. Yes, it is a
Was it?
record store.
Yeah, or like the Beat. The Beat. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, I
Probably
don't
there
think I've
probably
heard
is
that
one
one.
called the Groove, but
Probably.
point
There's
being, they're
also
go
there's
on.
so many in the greater Sacramento. Like
Yeah.
you talk about like downtown Sacramento, right? But they can have um a lot of places. I go. There's a record place in Davis, downtown Davis, that I go to
Oh,
as
that
well.
makes sense.
It's called Armadillo Music.
Huh.
And I originally, but
Girls up
like you
no
said,
go.
in the before days, it was a bar slash record store. So you would go in, like get a pint, and then
I like that.
like cruise through whatever
Yeah.
records that you find. And if you're intoxicated enough, you can probably buy like 3 records. I think that was the business plan.
I mean, that's not a
It was
bad idea. Like, and that sounds like a
not at
pretty cool spot
all.
to kick it. I ain't gonna lie.
It was
Like,
really
yeah.
cool. It's really cool, and it's really nice and quaint. And they have like an upstairs section where it's all cassettes and like old CDs,
Oh,
right? So it's mainly
nice.
a record store,
Yeah.
but you go up and like you get like a Celine Dion cassette for $2 or something
Yeah.
like that.
My first car had only a cassette player in it. And
Nice.
so, and it was definitely in the time when, everyone was listening to MP3. So it wasn't like back in the
Hmm.
day and you're like, man, but I remember going into Dimple and be like, all right, I'm going to get like 5 cassettes for
Right.
like $5 total.
Hmm.
And those will be like my backup music, if you ever didn't have your
Right.
headphones or something.
Right.
And
Or
they
the
were,
radio was just not doing it for you. Yeah,
yeah.
ten
And it was
percent.
all these like obscure rap cassettes. I'd be like, let's give this a shot. It's a quarter. Um,
Right.
yeah, God, I wish I still had them because I had some. Like, I bought them purely based off of titles. I didn't know any of the artists. I was like, let's
Those
do
are
it.
the best.
Let's do it.
Those
Yeah.
are the best. I used to go into Dimple and buy movie soundtracks on CD. Because, like, you know when you're so like immersed in a movie and you're like, what
Yes.
is it? And it's
Some
like
of
the
them are good.
soundtrack.
Yeah.
Right, very much so. So I remember going when Dimple was a thing, like buying God, Pilgrim versus the World. That was an
Oh,
amazing soundtrack.
classic.
Edgar Wright. Oh my God,
Yes.
he was so fantastic. So I think I still have that in my car actually as a CD. I listen to it every once in a while.
Nice.
There's like a couple of movies where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I just need the soundtrack to play
Yeah.
at all times. But yeah, it makes or break. Okay, this is kind of, but not really off topic. Sometimes the soundtrack of a movie absolutely makes or breaks the movie, and I think
Yeah. Definitely.
it's so fascinating. It's so cool. Like as a film minor or previous film minor, we study all aspects of a movie, right, from the
Mhm,
beginning
mhm.
to end, lighting,
Like the yeah,
right, everything. So lighting, sound, color,
cinematography.
characters, exactly, plot,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Literally everything that you can
Yeah.
see on your screen, hear, experience, anything, whatever it is, we study it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And it's so cool to like if you or like when you watch a movie and
Mhm.
sometimes you hear like an original score,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, oh my God, this music is something like the Star Wars song, for example.
Yeah,
Everybody knows
like
it.
something that was straight up composed
Right.
from and use a full orchestra, full band to
Exactly.
record
Right.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. And they made that from scratch for this very specific movie. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Like I think about there's a lot of there's a lot of movies that are like
Mhm,
that. Like
mhm.
I think about Phantom of the Opera whenever I think of like great immersive sounds, and it's like,
Yes.
oh my God, the music.
God, what movie was I watching that Dunkirk? Have you seen that? It's not a
Okay.
classic, but it's a great,
It's,
oh my God. Like
it's a good movie.
for those who haven't
A
seen
war
it,
movie.
yeah, it's a World War II movie. Little context, it's about when the British Army was getting surrounded by the Germans real early on. I'm not going to go into too much of the history, but the sound and the music in it, like I was watching it. I really regret I didn't see it in theaters.
Right.
So I was watching it with like headphones on, like my computer, and you're like, okay, and and it's it's a war movie, so it kind of starts off with a little bit of an action scene, and I think if I remember right, like some soldiers are walking down the street, and then like some machine gun kicks off, and like the music is just like a bum 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 bum, and it doesn't stop for like 2 hours, and you're like, and by the end of the movie, you're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out right now. Like,
exactly, it's very it changes the
music.
experience. Yes, like one of my really good friends, he's a film major, and he's actually in the master's program for film.
Ooh, cool.
Shout out to Michael, if Michael is listening. Michael was also on our team for orientation.
Oh, it was a Michael, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
I don't like to presume necessarily. I've learned to do that. Like, we only know folks on the orientation team.
Exactly. No, I totally get that. But Michael and I were talking about Uncut Gems, the serious Adam Sandler movie.
Yes.
One of the very few. And that he was he had told me to watch it before I actually did. And he was like, he said he loved the movie, but he realized that like the movie is very loud. And I was like, okay, then turn it down, Michael. Like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
but then I watched the movie, and then I figured out what he actually meant by really loud. Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because
sound terms.
It's kind of like, it's not a mob movie. There's no mobsters, but like it is definitely an action movie.
Gotcha.
And it's basically following, to a certain extent, following the life of this jeweler in New York and his like gambling antics and whatever it is. Okay. And so there's a lot, and you can imagine with people from that kind of personality that do a lot of gambling, they live life on the edge. Yeah. So a lot of the sound, if it's not music, right? Exactly. If it's not music, it's just like him yelling at his wife or him yelling at his partner.
Like it's a very high intensity, like, yeah.
Exactly. Like all the time. It's like, oh my God, like you're sitting quite literally at the edge of your seat, like holding on to like figure out, is he gonna like come out alive?
Yeah.
And, yes.
There was another one like that. I think it was called Running Scared.
I haven't heard of that.
It's very, oh God, I don't even know how to sum up the plot. It's one of those where things just keep happening. Like I think it starts off with like some guy sees a crime happen and then, from there kind of takes off. But oh my God, it's another one where you are like at the edge of your seat, almost falling off your chair because you're like, oh my God, like there's, like I don't even want to get into the details. I think some of them might not even be appropriate for the podcast. Right. But it is a great movie. See if folks have the chance. But it's another one of those where it just grips you and just gets your heart going the whole entire time. Right. Like you're like, oh my God, yeah.
I love movies like that. I love the like the post movie clarity that one gets, especially when you leave a movie theater. You know what I mean? Where you watch a good movie and you're like, wow, that was good. And then I've had those experiences. Well, okay, let me preface this by saying I'm definitely a crier. Like at the slightest like character development moment, I will cry. Like if like somebody's like somebody gets confronted about their personality, I'm like, no, don't tell them that. No. I will start crying. So I've definitely had moments where I leave a movie theater like completely sobbing, like crying hysterically, and then get to my car and I'm like, but I have to get home. Like I can't sit down in my car and cry. And so very dangerously, I will get in my car still continuing to cry, but like I can't see anything because there's so many tears in my eyes.
I need windshield wipers for my eyes.
For my eyes, exactly. But I love movies. I love movies. It's one of those very unique experiences, very similar to when you're listening to a record. Actually, when you're sitting down and like if you truly absorb what is being subjected on you.
Interesting way to put it, but I know what you mean.
Right.
Yes.
You're right. That is very interesting. Like when something is like exposed. That's another
no, word. But that is really what it is. It's because these things, if you're really into the movie, you're kind of saying, I'm going to just let you tell me things. I'm going to let you play noises and I'm going to just be subjected to it. And hopefully, and you're hoping it's going to be a great experience type deal. But that's really what it is. Yeah.
And to a certain extent, whether you believe it or not, it does change people's lives. Yeah. Whether that's on a grand, big scale or on a small scale, if it changes something like your perception of something. Yeah. It can change your whole world. It's such an amazing experience. I absolutely I miss that feeling. I miss that feeling of going into a movie theater and like sitting down and like the smell of it all and like the feel of it all, especially when they added the seat warmers. changed the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely accidentally turned it on. And you think you're
Right.
reclining your chair because the movie started, and you're like, I didn't really do this before things were like had the lights on, and then you're sitting there and you're like, am I getting excited over this movie or am I on
Or the
fire?
seating.
Yeah,
Right.
like, what's happening here?
What's happening?
But no, I do miss that, and I think overall, especially since like it's so easy to have cell phones and such, that people don't really take that time to have like the individual or what's that, the exclusive attention. There we
Right.
go. Towards like a movie or sitting down and go, I'm just gonna listen to this music. Like admittedly, even if I'm listening to a new songs, I'm probably gonna try to do it while I'm driving. So I'm already 50-50, like music, don't hit that car, music, probably should turn on your blinker. Probably.
Right.
Probably. But yeah, probably. I try to. But yeah, I think, and especially with movies, I've sat down to watch like a show or a movie with friends and stuff, and it's like I've learned not to get too frustrated with it, but you kind of want to be like, hey, put your phone away. Like, this is a good scene. You're missing cool stuff. Like, you're missing a look from an actor, and that actually captured a lot of the story or something like. And then you feel like a nerd about it. You're like, what?
No, my brother and I have been, during COVID, because I live with my family. We've had a lot of more time to like watch.
Oh, I think we lost
watching
you.
A movie. Oh, hold on.
Here's start again from your brother. You and your brother have had a lot of time during COVID.
Gotcha. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes. We just kind of had a quick lag.
So because of COVID, and I live with my family, so because of that, my brother and I, we've been doing a lot of things together. So one of those things is watching movies together. So he does that. So he goes on his phone, and he's like half watching the movie, half Snapchatting his friends, right? Or like half watching the movie, half like playing whatever it is Among Us on his phone. I'm like, bro, like to watch the movie with me, because you're absolutely, it's
involved.
Exactly. You watch the movie, you hear the movie, you sympathize with the characters, and but like you can't do that when you're like not fully there. You know what I mean? And and I can't blame him completely.
But you're not really. You're getting like. It's like driving through a city really quick on the freeway and saying, I totally visited that city. And you're like, well, I mean, you did. You were physically there, but come on.
But, exactly. And, and as somebody, like I mentioned, as somebody that studies film, one of my really good film professors, she used to say that in every frame, everything has been chosen for a specific reason.
Yes.
Right. So they want you to see this.
Yes.
So that like the chandelier.
I'm glad I've finally met somebody else who understands that.
Right.
But yes, so that is true. Go on. Sorry.
If like literally the entire set design, even if it's just background noise, it was chosen to be there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. Every single bit of it. They start with a blank canvas. And they said, okay, we need to make this movie, and we need to show this audience this very specific story. Like, a lot of people would be surprised to know that, when you're watching a movie and it's a scene in the bedroom alone says so much about the personality of the person who owns
the
it.
Shot, the lighting they're trying to go for in that particular shot. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're on your phone and you're like, I'm watching, but you're actually just like listening to the monologue or the whatever, it's like you're not actually, you don't know who this person is. You're just listening to their words.
Or like when a quick scene shows up, something that you have to read, and they miss it, and they're like, wait, what's going on? And you're like, all right, back, I'm going to rewind. Pause it, you're like, read it, unpause. Yeah.
And I hate so I'm a slow reader, so I hate when that happens in like the movie theaters when you actually can't go back and you're like, I missed it.
Oh, yes.
It's the worst.
Yeah. I grew up with some deaf grandparents. I know I said some. Like, my grandparents were deaf. So they were, great folks, but they had like, subtitles on the TV. So I grew up early on, like kind of learning to read as I watched TV. I didn't need to because obviously I could hear it, but I didn't really care to turn off the subtitles. So you just kind of like got used to it. So now like when I'm watching like foreign films or anything, like, oh, this is easy.
You're just watching. Yeah. No, I actually can't. I do not like watching television or like
Without subtitles.
Netflix without subtitles.
Yeah.
For me, it makes it okay. It is a little bit of a different experience. I grew up because I'm Middle Eastern, and I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Lebanon.
Mhm.
The way that we watch television is that it would be American television, so they speak English,
Mhm.
and then the
And the
subtitles would be in
subtitles.
Arabic.
Gotcha.
Right. So I had to like think about the words, but also hear the English and read the Arabic, so I know the translation.
Gotcha.
But growing up, it started to become almost a force of habit to see words on the screen.
Yeah.
So now I just read it in English and hear it in English, and it helps the experience,
Yeah.
especially if there's words that I'm not familiar with that they have in the conversation. I'm like, ooh, I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
So I'll Google it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Right. But yeah, back to people like not fully immersing themselves in an experience, whether that's TV or movies. You really cannot blame people for that anymore, especially when, like you mentioned, they're on their phone constantly.
Yeah.
And we have this is another pandemic that no one wants to talk about, but it's people's attention spans are much shorter than they've ever been, especially
Yeah.
with the introduction of media like Vine or TikTok.
I was about
where
to
it's
say
like,
that Vines, and I know
right,
there's a new, was it Quibi? It's some new service where
right,
they're trying to do
hmm
just like that short form. I
right.
think yeah,
It's basically a full television show with 10-minute
like
episodes.
YouTube videos. Yeah,
Exactly. And I'm
as
like,
opposed to
wow, okay. They're just trying to shorten the message as much as
everything's
possible,
bite
but have it
sized.
but jam
Everything's
packed.
yeah. Like, hey, you should be able to
Exactly.
digest this in a minute, otherwise it's too long.
Exactly,
Um,
and
yeah,
it's like wow, the speed in which everything is going is tremendous, and because we get used to being on our phones and just like
yeah,
scrolling endlessly. It's like it's almost hard to sit down and watch a 2 hour movie
yeah.
and first of all fully engage with it, which makes filmmakers' job much
Tougher.
harder.
Yeah.
No one talks about that. You
It's
know what I
hard to
mean?
find a 2 hour movie these days. Like usually
Right.
it's like, oh, an hour better be, I'm sorry, a movie better be an hour and like 15 minutes, you know, and
Right.
you see like a 2 hour movie when one comes out and you're like, even I'll be like, sweet Jesus, like I need to go to the bathroom. What's going on here?
No.
Like,
Yes. Exactly.
um,
Like Avatar or Titanic being 3 hour movies, and you're like,
I'm also the
huh?
guy
Like,
who will die from like my bladder exploding rather than
are
get
you
up. I was like, no, I don't
right?
want to miss the movie. You know, I'll be like
Exactly.
keeled
No.
over, like the ending though. Like, get me the
The
stretcher.
insane.
The credits are
No,
almost here.
I live for that moment too when you're like basically in pain trying
Yeah,
to finish the movie, especially if it's like an action movie and like
I left
the ending is.
once. It was a Star
Mhm.
Wars movie. I got to my spot where I was like, okay, I straight up don't want to make a mess here in this seat. Let's be an
Star Wars
adult,
movies
you
are
know,
long,
like, you
right?
know, and I go and then do my biz and come back. And of course it was so near the end of the movie, there was already like employees waiting at
Oh my
the
god.
side thing. So like I come in to like
Mhm.
finish, I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the newer ones. So like,
Right.
you know, it's like the final, they're all starships are flying around and stuff, lasers, pew, pew, pew. And I'm like, in there, I had to throw that out there. And you know, they're like, and they're looking at me and they like, are you trying to sneak in? You're like, no, man, I had to like
No, no,
go,
I've been here.
I had to do my business and come back. Like, I'm just trying to see
Right,
the end of the movie. Um,
right,
but yeah, I do think overall attention spans are just crazy short these days. And I know like even
exactly.
I see it all the time, or not these days, but back when you go to like the Starbucks line, you know, or something like
Mm,
that, and everyone's on their phone.
right,
And you like you start feeling like, man, is it a superpower to just kind of look around and
right.
I don't know,
It
like
yeah.
be
It's almost
comfortable
like
with having
wearing
nothing going on.
exactly. It's almost like I was gonna say it's like wearing the invisible cloak from Harry Potter. It's like you're watching everybody, but nobody knows that you're around them. You know,
Yeah.
and like everybody's on their phone. But I catch myself in those moments, and I almost get like almost like a superiority complex where I'm like I'm better than everyone because I'm not on my phone. But then I catch myself on my phone all the time, and I'm like, bro, stop being a hypocrite, you know? And
Yeah,
or
I mean, like I'll use my phone, but I still try to like I try to use it what I call like business like, oh, I'll step off to
mhm,
the side. Let me quickly like, because I
check my
do
email.
tutoring and stuff
Mhm,
now, so I actually do kind of work from my phone. But like,
Right.
yeah, let me do that real quick, and then I'll try to like, if I'm in the middle of a conversation, I'll try to be, oh, I'm so sorry, let me handle this real quick. Like, I try to
Right.
separate it out rather than having the, I've definitely been talking to folks, and they're like, tell you what, I'll just tape the phone to
On
my
the foot, right.
forehead, so that way it still feels like you're making contact. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And no, and it's crazy kind of mentioning that, especially recording these long podcasts, but I know I personally enjoy that, I think, more so these days, because it's a chance to really like the recordings as well as listening to them. I'm a big podcast fan myself, but
I love podcasts. I just started I started listening to Crime Junkie. Hold on.
ooh,
Can you hear that?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
It's not too loud on my end. I just
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So podcast. I just started listening to Crime Junkie, and I never really realized I did. So I watch crime shows. I watch crime television shows. Criminal Minds is like one of my favorite shows. And so there's a lot of like crime cop podcasts, and so I started listening to one of them, and I'm like, whoa, like this is like the crime shows are actually real. Like not the show, but like there's a lot of stories about all these criminals.
So
and all these
is
people
it
going missing.
real stories in Crime Junkies? Is that
Right.
because I'm
So
not too
Crime
familiar with
Junkie.
it? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So Crime Junkie, it's essentially every episode. There's like different types of episodes. There's stories about people who are missing, people who are
various
serial
criminally,
killers.
yeah.
Exactly, like unsolved mystery cases.
Gotcha.
Like there's a lot of different like criminal activity essentially, and so they break down each case, and they bring on like some experts, whether that's like psychological experts on
Somebody in like that particular field that has to do with that case.
profilers, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody basically, and just kind of not necessarily interview them, but they kind of get their input to some extent. It's very fascinating, very, very fascinating, just to think about the world that we live in.
Yeah. How long are these podcasts, out of curiosity?
They're actually not that long. So I think the shortest episode I've listened to was a little bit under or over 20 minutes. And the longest is like a little bit under an hour.
Okay.
So it's just the perfect amount for like a drive.
When especially when it's like informational, you know what I mean? You kind of par it down versus, I don't know, like these ones tend to extend out a little bit more. I think we're probably at like hour and 15 right now, but
oh wow, really?
Yeah, I know. That's the best part. Time just flies. But yeah, that makes sense too when it's like really informational and you're kind of you're following that story and they're throwing a lot at you. But that's really cool. I'll have to check that one out. I know I definitely been listening to a lot more podcasts these days.
Which podcasts do you listen to? Like what do you dabble with?
There we go. Yeah. So my two main ones these days. So one, I'll definitely say Joe Rogan Experience is probably the one that really got me into the podcasting, just from like here and there, like, oh, there'd be some video that's related to something else I was watching on YouTube, and you're like, I'll try that out. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I could probably do that. But no, I really like those ones, partially because of one, the long form of it, and you feel like you really get to like kind of know somebody and like have a cool conversation. So that's definitely on there.
Joe Rogan is a very interesting character too.
Yeah.
He's a very powerful being. So like you can actually listen.
Yeah. Have you seen that guy's kicks? That guy is insane. Like there's
something else.
There's a video of him doing some like spinning back kicks on some dummies, and he's just doing demos, right? And it's just like, God, he annihilates those bags. I was like, note to self, if I ever meet Joe Rogan, stay on his good side.
Don't fight him.
Not that I think he would kick me for an easy reason.
You never know.
Yeah, I never know, man. But no, I like that one. I like the variety of it too. You know, sometimes you get an entertainer, you get a sciencey. But the Jocko podcast is another one. So that's by Jocko Willink. I don't know if you're familiar with it. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he does like a lot of like really cool leadership stuff. I actually have his books in my stack over here.
Cool.
Extreme Ownership. But it's really cool. He does, it focuses a lot on leadership. right there.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll have like guests come on. Most of them so far are like some military occupation. He had like a guy who was like a jet fighter instructor, and I'm like, this is the coolest conversation ever.
Nice. Interesting.
But yeah, and that's like, that one's pretty cool. And then the other one that I'd say consumes most of my time, and I'll try out like podcasts here and there, but the Meat Eater podcast, which is a
I've heard about that,
it's
but I haven't actually listened to it.
It's really cool. It's a very outdoorsy podcast. So it's hosted by Steve Manella, and he's a hunter, fisher, like avid conservationist.
Outdoorsman.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really cool. Like they'll bring on some guy who works in like the Wisconsin Department of Forestry, and he'll talk about like what they've been doing for the environment with relation to coyotes, like really cool stuff. So I used to rock that one a lot. Like if you ever saw me back in the before time walking around campus, I was probably listening to a podcast.
Listening to that. That's fine. That's fine. I like that. I like so I like learning new things, and definitely podcast is definitely one of those ways that you can like sneak in some very cool information that makes you sound smarter in conversations. But I've also definitely been guilty to like listening to podcasts that really probably will just lower my IQ. You know what I mean? One of those being the Bobby Lee podcast. So Bobby Lee is a former stand-up comedian.
Yeah, he was the guy from Mad TV and stuff, right?
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Very smart. A very funny guy.
So you can only imagine like the weirdest conversations, very vulgar, very unnecessarily stupid, but like it's so like it's such an experience because it's him and then his co-podcaster. I can't remember his name.
Okay, but he's got a co-host with him. Yeah.
So they match energies as far as the crazy goes.
Yeah.
And so when you're it's like watching fish in a fishbowl. It's like you have to like keep watching it because they're so like in their element.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's funny.
I've listened to those kinds of podcasts. There's also so I did improv in college, and it's so weird to say in college because
I know. Yeah.
Right.
Because I know it's only a couple months out, but it makes it sound like 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I did improv. And so there was a lot of like you can imagine how many different comedy podcasts there are, but there's like a couple of improv ones, and there's one I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically a bunch of characters, and then the I was gonna say crowd, but the listeners
so the listeners kind of send in the suggestions.
Exactly. They send them suggestions of like whether that's their whereabouts or their occupations or their relative relationships.
Yeah.
And then it's just right on the spot. It's just like basically like a live show, and they just
I mean, because improv, you have to have the suggestion, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's part of the game.
I had to think about that really quick. I'm like, I think that's technically correct.
Yeah. Exactly. So there was this one episode. I can never get this out of my head, but there's this one episode where basically the game is that they're a group of coworkers, and they're talking like bad about one of their other coworkers. So anytime somebody leaves the room, they start talking bad about
that person. Yeah,
exactly. And then they keep just like rotating characters.
Yeah,
like, oh my god, like Janet has tuna breath again, and like it's just like roasting
tell
each
me
other.
about it. She spilled it on my work the other day. Yes.
Right, exactly. So they keep rotating the whole thing. It's really, really fun. It's so much fun. I miss it.
That's cool. What's the podcast called? The improv one?
I cannot remember.
Since we're doing shout outs, I guess we might as well say the names of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if anything, I remember that the picture of it was a purple picture. That's the only thing I remember.
Maybe
like the cover art.
Maybe at some point we'll figure out and we can add it into the description for the video.
Right. There you go. That'd be nice. But yeah, I think this is a very media related episode. We talked about music. We talked about film.
I mean, you are a communications major, so I think it all fits in together. But no, this was a really good talk. And as far as podcasts, before we get off of that list, I would like to do a shout out, especially since we mentioned Michael earlier, that he is rocking the Hall Council. I almost called it City Hall, and that would be terrible. this.
All Council podcast.
But yes,
That's
he has
a very good podcast.
I haven't listened to it as much, and I think I mentioned this before, but I've definitely rocked a couple episodes and I like it. I think now I have more time. The problem was I started getting into it at a time when I was honestly way too busy with other assignments, and it was like,
I get that.
hey, I really should do chemistry stuff. But now that I have some more time, I really should go back and listen to it because I do like the approach. So I'll throw that in the list too, because why not? Why not shout out?
Our fellow Hornet. Michael's podcast is very good. So his podcast is with his girlfriend Hannah and his previous roommate Kevin, and they talk about, basically they rewatch movies and shows and they kind of dissect them. And if it's not talking about the show, it's talking basically about the what's it called, the context of the show and everything. And it takes a very humorous turn every once in a while. I
remember seeing
really cool.
Some episodes down the line where because I think whatever link I had, you start with the most recent one, and I'm very much like, let's just go back to episode 1. Let's go from the beginning.
Right.
I go through the long grind with some podcasts where you're like, let's go work through it. But yeah, I remember seeing he had like Kids Next Door like review episodes. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I remember that show.
One of my favorite episodes that I listened to was Lilo and Stitch, the better movie, and they basically talk about what they have in common.
Wait, I think you cut out real quick. I heard Lilo and Stitch. Which movies?
So Lilo and Stitch and let me try again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So one of my favorite episodes is Lilo and Stitch versus Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, okay,
so they talk about the similarities. Exactly, they talk about the similarities and then the differences of the movies. So they talk about like the sidekick animal. So Stitch being the sidekick animal.
Yeah.
And you have I can't remember his name,
llama?
but basically, Cusco ends up being a llama, but his like sidekick.
Oh yeah, there was like another.
Being,
the big guy.
I can't remember his name. Well, that's Kronk. Yes,
Kronk. Yeah.
Was Yzma. Yeah, exactly. So so you have the sidekick with the villain, and then
I remember
the
like
sidekick with
zero names from that movie, but I remember the characters. I'm like, there was a llama. There was like the evil lady with the cucumbers.
Right.
Like.
She, for some reason, she was purple too. Like that was like, huh? What?
Hey man,
okay.
she liked boysenberries.
Maybe, you never know. But yeah, it was a very good episode. So big shout out to Michael. That's a that's a good podcast. Well, Council podcast.
Yeah, I will definitely support that. A fellow Sax Tape podcast. But yeah, no, this was definitely a very fun media-filled episode. I think we kind of ran the gamut, if you will. It's going to be a challenge going back and remembering the topic list. So. That's always the fun part is I go through and I'm like, what did we talk about? But this was definitely a good episode. I think we're at I think we did an hour and a half or something.
Nice.
It's crazy how time flies on this. Like I said, the episode I did with Valoy, when I hit stop, it was like a 2 hour and 15 minute.
It's also fun to catch up with people that you haven't really talked to in a really long time. So I really appreciate you having me here, Chris, because I think also, for the most part, the people that are going to be listening to this are people that we know. Our
better
friends,
or worse.
our fellow friends. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be really nice to like share what I've been doing, because I don't know, when I was a leader, I really wanted to know what my coordinators were up to, and that just alone is just a whole different conversation to have about how I was coordinator. And I really, really did not feel as if I filled that leadership role as much as I wanted to. But given the circumstances,
I'm gonna just go on record and disagree. And say you did.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Since I was on the team you were leading, I'm gonna say no, you did a good job.
I thank you so much.
And we could definitely have a whole episode if you want. I know that's a whole nother can of worms. So something we didn't even really mention was you were the former coordinator. I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't sound bad. Coordinator of new student orientation. So you were kind of my boss.
Kind of. One of the three.
You were definitely more of my boss than other folks on the team. So with the exception of the other coordinator, Andrew. But yeah, so that we can definitely do a whole episode about that as well.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, was kind of like you're talking about. I felt that the orientation team is just full of these crazy, just like everyone's got some crazy background stuff that I didn't even know about. And especially working online this summer, we didn't really get to see folks as well as we certainly would have if we were like in person. So yeah, that's why I really like this, is stays in connect, keeps me in connect with folks, lets everyone stay connected, and hopefully shares the orientation leaders with the rest of the world.
Right. Well, you're absolutely, everybody has a story, and you know, it's not just one story too. There's so many stories that somebody can just talk about. I, for one, can talk for hours about myself. I'm the most known subject I know about myself. Like it's crazy.
I know the feeling.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. We had a lot of, I mean, with any team, not just orientation, any team has very interesting characters. We just got lucky to have like nearly 50 people of just like amazing and wonderful people.
I think
I genuinely, this working cut off a little bit. But yeah, our team was something else. I had the biggest privilege I ever got was being able to choose the people that I wanted to work with. And it was, I don't think I missed a beat. It was, every single one was chosen correctly, in my opinion. I love my team this year. It was wonderful. Of course.
yeah. No, it was a great time, certainly. Working in orientation over the summer, and then like, do you miss it? I'm gonna just go out there and say, do you miss working with the team and stuff? We can cut this out later for you. No, I'd like this as a meeting. I worked orientation for 3 years. So I think we miss you. I'll say that. I'll say I think we miss you definitely. So.
Thank you. I've worked orientation for 3 years, and I've had 3 different roles all 3 years. So I was a new orientation leader, I was a return orientation leader, and then I kind of moved up to coordinator. And every year was a completely different experience. And to be quite honest, it's almost like picking a favorite kid. You can't pick a favorite summer, to me at least, you know. But do I miss it? Every day. I miss being part of something great, because I knew deep down, you know, whether we had a good day or a bad day, we made a difference. Whether that's the difference was for a student or for a leader, we made some form of difference every single day. And it was just wonderful knowing that I was waking up every single morning really, really early with a purpose. Like, I had a purpose, and I knew everybody was coming on knowing that they had a job to do, but it wasn't just
just clocking tires in and, hey guys, let's get to our stations and do our deal.
Exactly. It was everybody, well, almost everybody. Well, I'm going to be very optimistic and say everybody woke up knowing that they were part of something great, and they wanted to be part of this team, actively being part of this team. Because we did, one of the things that, you know, as a coordinator, because obviously we have to apply for the position and talk to Mary about it, and like what are our goals for the team. My main goal was to create a family, right? I because that's what I got my first year. I felt like such a part of something so consistent and so cohesive that I wanted to recreate that, but like be the head of the household, you know what I mean? Exactly. So I definitely, it was very much, that goal was filled. Like, I had fun, and I definitely feel like would go back in a heartbeat.
I got that family experience, if you will. Like, I felt the team, and, you know, still feel it is now. I realize all my stuff is past tense, like it's no longer going to be awesome and stuff like that. It's all viewed through like each summer and stuff like that. But no, I definitely think I had that same experience, or had that same feeling of like, this is a tight-knit family. You know, we're here to work, we're here to do the job that, you know, we really all signed up to do. But it was still a tight-knit group. Yeah, just like you said, everyone was excited to be there. getting up at whatever time. I think I probably woke up earlier than most based off of responses I got, but you know, we're still getting up early. Like we all would have gotten up early if we were in person, but but yeah, no, it was a great time, and I know I'm definitely looking forward to doing it again next semester, and certainly once an orientation leader, always an orientation leader. So,
always an orientation leader, exactly. Especially with the Sac State family, we had a rolling crew, and you know, it's cool. So as a coordinator, we really get a lot of privileges that sometimes I forget about. But one of those privileges is being able to communicate. Right, that's not just but one of them is getting connected to at least having some form of relationship with other orientation teams across different universities. And you can see a lot of differences in how some of these teams operate, whether that's just purely from like a role relationship. So I'll give you an example. One of the schools that I have connections to, they have what they call their orientation leaders. They have around 300 of them. And then their coordinators, they have around 40 of them. Wow. And then their supervisors, there's around 10 of them.
Are there actually other students at the school, or is it just orientation leaders there?
Well, it's a huge UC university, like it's and so their dynamic alone. And you can just imagine if there's 300 orientation leaders, and that's a minimum, I think, too. If there's 300 orientation leaders, I don't think the connection would have been anywhere remotely as close.
You definitely have to take a whole different approach. And for the record, I know we kind of mentioned it earlier, the Sacramento State New Student Orientation rocks about 50 to 60 if you include the staff. About 50 to 60 in number. Yeah. So 300 is like 6 times our size.
Exactly. So, you know, alone just personally from a responsibility standpoint, I think knowing that I'm like supervising anywhere, like you said, between 40 to 50 orientation leaders is like a major responsibility. But knowing that not only did we, like me and Kendra, who was my co-supervisor or co-coordinator, not only did we make sure that everybody was doing their job correctly, but we also made sure to a certain extent that our leaders were having fun doing what they were doing. And at least they felt welcomed onto this team. You know, we made sure that it was a safe space. And like I said, I can talk about this for a really, really long time. But
I mean, we got time. Technically, we can just go, let's do it.
For another 2 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a whole different experience. There was nothing like it. Yeah. And it taught me a lot about myself, my leadership style. It taught me a lot about how I genuinely have imposter syndrome, and I really try to work on it as much as I can. But you know, when you get a seat at a big table, it's hard not to be very skeptical.
Everyone gets imposter syndrome. Yeah, I mean, like I get that turning on this podcast. I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
and you're doing it wonderfully, right?
Thank you. Of course. But I mean, that's the key right there. Is just going, I'm probably just doing a good job. You know, like, but no, orientation was amazing. I know it's almost cliche of a sentence at this point, but it's an experience I will never forget. Cliche with the team. But it's an experience I never will forget, especially doing it online and having that kind of a historic touch to it, you know, where
it definitely was.
You know, we
started very traditionally, and then all the rules just chucked right out the window.
And it was everyone get zoomed up. Let's do this. Like
exactly.
Yeah, no.
And we did. And we did it really well.
Yes, we did.
And you know, to a certain extent, I know I graduated and so did my co-coordinator, but to a certain extent, I feel like as the leader, and shout out to Kendra, but I think that you as orientation leaders, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think, it gives you as an orientation leader a better understanding of what professors and teachers and instructors feel when they have a responsibility to a certain class and they need to essentially perform the lesson plan. It's no longer just like teaching, you know, it's entertaining and performing and making sure that they're engaged.
showbiz. I've been saying the biggest thing by now is folks have to think like it's showbiz, you know, and
Exactly.
and I know, you know, it's easy saying that on the podcast where it's like, oh, of course it's a production, but even just doing like, orientation, it was like, okay, is my lighting good? Is like the sound going to be good? Like if I were watching this, would I care, or at least would I be interested, or would I kind of just be like, here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're running on 3 hours of sleep, but you need to keep that energy consistent all the way to the very last student that you're advising.
Well, to be fair, there was multiple nights I still ran on 3 hours of sleep, and I was like, I'm game, let's do. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. It's.
I'm a weirdo.
So, you know, we all are.
Yeah.
That's why
you can't take my sleep amount and apply it to everyone else. But,
right. But yeah, so like it's like you said, you had a very unique experience. I think us as 2020 orientation leaders, we had a very unique experience because unlike students that are coming in or experiencing online school for the first time, we had a glimpse of it from the other perspective, from the performance perspective, you know. And so I think there is some form of sympathy that you start to relate to your professors or your instructors, because they are on their, not on the phones, but like basically they're performing in front of their computers and their cameras, and with no audience, because everybody, of what I've heard, has their cameras off, has their mics off, and so
I mean, like, that tends to be the more common than not, and sometimes it's understandable. Like I say, if one person's doing a screen share for 2 hours or whatever, hopefully not, right? But, you know, then it's like, okay, I can't really see your camera anyways if you had it on. But no, it definitely is more common than not than folks have their mics off and their camera off. Right. And then if everyone has it on and you're the one who does kind of want to have your mic on, you're like, well, no, I'm just kind of that guy with the mic on, or the camera on rather.
But you know, I feel like percentage wise, I think us as orientation leaders will still probability wise, we are going to be that one student that has the camera on with the mic on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say mic. Usually mics are on when folks have to talk, but I'd say camera is the bigger one. Yeah. Which when you're doing this all online, like I think like this certainly wouldn't be the same conversation if like at least from me, my perspective, if we didn't have our cameras on right now. Like if I were just kind of like phone calling you, I'm sure we'd have fun. But I don't think it would be the same. Like, you know, like even right now, I can kind of see like your facial expressions. I could say something, I can see kind of how you're reacting to it, and presumably vice versa. Put on my poker face, but
and then it would be a completely different experience had we been together in one space in a studio, for example. You know.
Well, that's in the future. That's in the future. Maybe one day we can.
Hopefully, Yeah.
I'm sure there's got to be an unused room in Sequoia Halls somewhere. I'll be like,
we're manifesting this.
Yeah. Well, I got to get Ed Mills on here. And I'll be like, Ed. I gotta call him Ed.
I would listen to that episode front to back.
I think he would be down.
I'd love to listen to that. I think he would be. You know, I recently learned that Ed Mills is actually a lot more busier than we assume he is.
I mean, I assume he's pretty busy, but
right. As the vice president of our university, however, I learned not only does he teach at Sac State, he teaches at 2 other institutions.
No kidding.
Yes,
well, definitely like, wow. Extra shout out to Ed Mills.
Ed Mills, doing the most.
Getting after it. Yeah, there you go, man.
He's a wonderful human being. I like one of the things that I really love orientation for is putting me at a point, at an angle where I actually met a lot of people that have very big voices at our university, Ed Mills being one of them.
Brushing shoulders with the higher ups.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Just, hey dude, how you doing? You know?
Yeah, but I mean, you're right though, because you think like not only, I mean, that really goes for the whole team, because I know Ed Mills specifically, he came on and joined us a couple times for Zoom sessions. I don't remember, probably 45 minutes in length, but it was still like a good, like, hey, I'm talking to you guys. It's not like, hey, I'm just gonna like send an announcement.
Right.
And it was really cool getting that. Yeah.
Right, and you're right. He was talking to us and not at us, which is a big thing, especially online. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially when you're teaching or
Like if
performing
it
or
was
like
like a posted
showing.
video or something, which I will admit he
Exactly.
still rocks it in those posted videos. But
Oh, absolutely, he does. Oh my God, he was born to be the face of the camera.
like even if I
He was.
don't really care about the announcement, I'm down. Ed Mills is
I,
talking about it. Let's
it's
do it.
Ed.
Yeah, doesn't
Exactly.
really involve
See,
me. I'm in.
now we have to have Ed Mills on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm down. I mean, I'm sure if I shot him an email and was pretty good about being patient and getting him in here,
Right.
like I got Sage coming on eventually. I had to book her, I think, like a month out. Very busy,
Right.
very busy.
I'd assume. Uh,
But no, I think I could get him on here. He definitely expressed. I think that's what I enjoyed about him a lot. Was not only did you got to meet him, you got to talk to him, but he really, God, he loved our team.
hmm
There was one time where I hopped in after work to when he was doing like a Q&A, one of those parent Q&As, and I don't know, I
hmm
was still in work zone, so I was like, let's kind of listen in, see what's going on. I think Kendra actually found me. She was like, Chris, what are you doing here? I was like, shh.
I'm just here.
I'm hanging with Ed. But no, it was a cool thing. Mostly I was trying to see if I could pick up any cool announcements from the school just in case.
hmm
But no, he totally threw a shout out to the orientation team at the end. And it was like an awesome
Yeah.
just hearing them like, yeah, these guys are great. They got those sweet
Mhm.
polo shirts. Everyone should have one.
Right. But not everyone earns one. And that's the most important thing about this position is that we definitely
Yes.
the reason why we do get those shout outs, or the reason why we do get Ed Mills every once in a while in our meetings, or the reason why we
Yeah.
get President Nelson coming in is because we do a very big job.
Yeah.
It is advertised as a student assistant position, right? But it's way more than any other student position at Sac State or at any university for that matter. We learn the material of advising front and
Yeah.
back. You know what I mean? Whether that's general education.
Ye-
Sometimes if you are
Yeah. We
specialized,
have to be pros at Sac State, essentially.
exactly,
Like
exactly, and
that's the
it's not
summary of it.
exactly, and it's not just like the pros of Sac State academically, but
Mhm.
also socially to a certain. Like you have to know if the student is interested in joining the band. Okay, which department are they going to contact?
Yeah.
How
Like
are they
here's
going to find
an
that contact
email
information?
specifically to hit up for somebody. Yeah. Like talk
Exactly. And
to
sometimes,
Pam or
hmm
whatever. I don't know.
right, exactly. And sometimes it's like if you have an experience,
Yeah.
if you like as a student have had like the pleasure of like watching the orchestra play or whatever it is, you can talk about that experience. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's really channeling every memory that you have at Sac State, every single one, from the day that you step foot on that campus to the day that you leave. Everything that you have when students are meeting you for the first time, coming in and seeing what Sac State is about, that's what you do is that you show them and you explain to them and you teach them
Yeah. You
and
are
you
the
perform
first
for them.
face, essentially. Yeah. Like,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
And it's yeah, it's a tremendous job. And sometimes it's so easy to forget that because we have so much fun
Uh,
doing it and we have so much fun being part of the team that sometimes we really just forget that the job that we're doing is a big job.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
a
it's the
really big
old, and I think Mary mentioned over the summer, but I hear it especially with like the medical field. What
job.
might be another patient in the afternoon is that person's potentially worst day ever. You know what I mean?
Right,
Depending on like if someone's like, oh, I broke my arm or whatever,
right.
like it might just be,
hmm
oh, just another broken arm. Let's get the thing. But like, hey,
Right.
that's a big event in their life, and,
In their
and
life.
all it takes is that little bit of compassion.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what, because like we've already opened the orientation can of worms. What, out of curiosity, what drove you to become an orientation leader, or like, how did you? Yeah,
How
like
did I find out about it?
yeah, like, and I guess I'll start off with no, yeah, go for it, go for it.
Yeah. So, um,
I'll
it's
share
not a
mine
big
after.
story. Yeah, it's not a big story. It's not like I didn't leave high school thinking as soon as I get to college. And part of the funny bit of it is that I never had an orientation. So
Okay.
at the summer after
Renegade.
high school ended, the summer after high school ended, I was visiting my family back home in Lebanon for the entire summer. So I couldn't attend orientation. And at
Gotcha.
the time, the what we now call the pre-Hornet orientation videos did not exist. So it was just me and
it was either you showed up or you just didn't get the stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
It was me and my previous supervisor, Sean Ryan. I didn't know him obviously as an incoming student at the time.
Yeah.
We just exchanged a couple of emails, and he was like, okay, hello, incoming first year students. I know you're not going to be able to attend orientation, but basically gave me a very short synopsis of
stuff.
what Right. He was like, this is general education. Make sure that you take like one area A class, one area B class. You know what I mean? Very general.
I was almost forgetting the numbers off. I'm like, it's like, yeah.
Right.
Units.
So he was like, just like take one of each general education.
I got the manual
like,
over here, so we're good.
Right. So I was like, okay. So I did that. I signed up for classes. So I never really had like a big orientation as an incoming student.
Interesting.
So my second year of college, one of my friends, she wanted to be very involved with school.
Yeah.
So me being a person that really didn't have much connection to the university, I was like, I'm thankful that I have this new friend that I met, and she's introducing me to all these really cool things. Through her, I was able to get involved with previously known as Green Army, now known as the Swarm, and it's basically Sac State's spirit theme for athletics. Right, yeah. So we called it a marketing internship, but really it was just a bunch of students just cheering on the football team,
That's kind of marketing,
Right.
Direct marketing.
Kind of. So I was able to do that because of her, and she was like, hey, there's this job posted for an orientation leader, like let's apply together. So we both ended up getting that job. And at first I was like, okay, I mean, it's a summer job, it's gonna be fun, and then class started. And then I met everybody, and I'm like, these
when you say class, you mean like the training class?
Yes, ID 197. And that class, to a certain extent, I'm very dramatic in my words, but to a certain extent, it did change my life. It did introduce me to one of my best friends ever.
It changed me,
Right.
I think it changed everyone, whether like maybe in different ways, but I think I can't imagine there'd be anyone who went through that class and was like, that was just a class.
That was just a class. Exactly. Yeah. So my life changed forever when I was in that class, and that's kind of how it started. And I had a good class. I had a fantastic summer, and so when the year afterwards kind of rolled around and like return applications came out, it almost didn't seem like a question to me to reapply. You know what I mean? It was almost like, bro, like, yes, obviously.
It was like some homework that I have to do to just kind of continue this awesome lifestyle.
Exactly. And I just wanted to.
Not say I don't appreciate it.
It'd be kind of rude to say that I wanted to recreate my first summer, but to a certain extent, I wanted to be part of another wonderful summer.
Totally.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So, second year rolled around. Obviously, there's no ID 197 when you're a returner.
And really quick, for the record, ID 197, I think I mentioned it previously, but it's a one semester class. You kind of have to like go through this cool boot camp to become orientation leaders. There's very little running through mud and like lawn carrying. You may have to do push-ups if you forget your homework, but
depending.
But that's what we're talking about here. But go on, sorry.
Exactly. No, that's a good boot camp is definitely a good word to describe.
That's the best way I can sum it up. Is you start off with you're excited, but you don't really know the meat and potatoes of what you need to know.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a good class. Like I said, I just wanted to be part of another fantastic time. Or like fantastic summer, and I did have that experience. And it's cool, especially now I call it a privilege of having it be in person, having orientation in person. But having that privilege, I was able to meet people who were previously orientation leaders, because when you join as a new leader, you have returners, but those returners at some point were new leaders and they had other returners. You know what I mean? Like
it's this giant lineage, if you will. Yes. Exactly.
Yes. So I was able to meet all these really cool past orientation leaders.
Salty orientation leaders.
in 2016 who have graduated or like who are doing different things. And one of them is now a really good friend of mine, and he was describing to me this very common orientation dilemma. And he liked to say, he used the phrase through into for describing how we should be with orientation. So for background knowledge, through into is the name of the program that we have for transfer students who need to graduate in 2 years. So for my friend, he basically explained to me that a good time to leave orientation is after 2 years. So if you're done, you would be through into, right?
Okay.
So I got to to a certain extent, I definitely felt that after my second summer was over. I was like, I had a wonderful first summer, like it was a good second summer. Am I gonna continue on for a third summer? And then, like I mentioned, it is an exhausting job. It's a very big job, and doing it and over again, it will get exhausting, especially because we don't have a lot of time for a break.
Very emotionally investing, I would say.
Yes, it's very draining.
Yes.
So because it happens during the summer, you have your academic year, and then you do your summer, which is all your basically your very extensive job, and then you start again in the next year for your academics. So I felt exhausted after my second summer. I felt like it was too much to do for a third time. But then the coordinator positions came up, and that's when I started to reevaluate where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And to a certain extent, I started to think about my loyalty to the team, specifically to Mary Shepard too, because Mary really, she created she basically single-handedly created the orientation program. You know what I mean? She's been around for so long. She is
amazing. Yep.
She's wonderful, and she created this great program that I just wanted to be around for one more time to see how I can improve it. And when I thought about that, when I was like, okay, I don't want to be, this is gonna sound weird, but go with me. I don't want to be part of this team anymore. I want to be somebody that has a bigger voice in this team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be a crew member. I wanted to be somebody that was running the ship. Is basically what I'm trying to explain. But not just running the ship. I just didn't want, I didn't want to be in charge. Like that's not what I mean at all. I wanted to be somebody that can improve.
That's what we challenge Mary to a duel, old time style. You're like, Mary,
once in a while,
white glove comes out. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. No, we have lightsabers. That's what we fight with.
Oh, true. Yes. Well, you have to establish the duel first, and then it's old time rules. Yes. Right.
Exactly. But so that is how the chronological story went. And nice. You can't do orientation after you graduate, obviously, unless you do grad school.
Yeah.
Which to me is still a conversation in the works. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
That was a really great breakdown. I like that you. It's crazy. I didn't know you didn't. I didn't know that you didn't have your own orientation. And that makes sense given what you said. Just the circumstance of it. You hopefully are available during orientation, or else you can't really attend it. Right. But that was a cool, interesting origin story. I like that. It's the origin story of the superhero, and how each of these, if you broke it down into new leader, returning leader, and as a coordinator.
It definitely feels like chapters. And you're right. It made for a very interesting conversation during my interview as a first time interviewing.
Like, so I've never actually done this.
Right, because there's the questions are based off of your experience.
Yeah, like it's a lot of I don't want
exactly. So you go in and it's like it's like, oh, like what was your
Yeah.
orientation
Yeah.
experience?
What did you like about
Do
your
you,
orientation? What
right?
was
Do
super
you
cool
remember
about
your
it?
orientation leader? Exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I like NA to all of the questions, not
It takes
applicable.
you like 2 minutes to do your application. You're like,
Right,
here
right.
you go.
Here you go. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, well, they need to know who I am. So,
Yeah.
and like I said,
I would have thrown down a celebrity as my orientation leader. I would have been like John Bon Jovi. Like,
there you
I
go.
don't know why he,
Exactly.
yeah.
He'd be a fun orientation leader.
So Jersey.
But right. But yeah, so it's like I said, I am the subject I know most about. So my
That's
interview
totally fine.
was right. My interview was actually went pretty well because I know how to market myself.
Yeah, I admittedly didn't think my interview had gone that well. I was legit surprised when I had gotten the call back. Like, I thought the group
Really?
interview went well. Well, I was like, I remember showing up.
Group.
Like, first off, I had work all day the day of my individual interview. So for the record, Mariam was actually there interviewing me. But yeah, I'd work all day, and so like I couldn't shift things around. So like I got out of work at American River, drove insanely fast down Fair Oaks because I knew I had to be like at the interview, and like got there, like got myself all good, and then like go in, and then I think like you guys were running late, which is totally understandable. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like it was all out of like, okay, rush to get here. I'm like, okay. And I was like trying to calm myself down. And then I don't know, I think I was just like kind of weird at interviews at the time. Like
I remember your interview.
Like, I didn't feel it went bad. It just didn't feel like, it wasn't like, I didn't walk away going, I'm getting this job. I was like, man,
no, you sold yourself pretty well. Yeah, like I said, your interview.
But I got in, so I must have gotten
right. I remember your group interview quite vividly because it was in a different location than where we usually.
I definitely remember the group interview going.
Yeah,
I felt that one went pretty well. Yeah,
right. You and Valoy had the same group interview, and I remember you guys sat next to each other. And for a moment, I thought you guys knew each other because there was like a dynamic happening. And I was like, "This is good." But your individual interview, I remember. The reason why I remember is because the first thing that we do for orientation interviews is we ask people to bring in a personal.
Yes.
Walked in, and Mary was like, "Okay, so what's your personal item?" And you're like, "I didn't." There was a personal item.
I am. Yeah, right. And that was. Yeah, and I was like, "That's." I remember that fact. I forgot about that part. But that added new is like, oh my god, like rush to get here. I felt like I was so tired from like, because I was working as a tutor, so I was like, man, been helping people with bio and chemistry all day. So I was like, oh my god, I forgot that.
But I'll tell you something. Usually that's for at least Mary. Part of the conversation that we had before we even started any interviews is that sometimes that's a deciding factor for leaders whether or not they get a job. So for you to not have an item but to still get the job and to still have like to me it was a good impression.
Definitely honored that you guys still accepted me, and I felt very privileged to be
there was
an
no
orientation
doubt.
I didn't mean to make this sound very light. Yeah.
No, it was no, like I said, yeah, if you left a very good impression even without the personal item, which is not common. So yeah, you killed it. You're here. You're doing great things, and you're part of one of the best teams out there.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely glad it went well overall. I think there was another time. What was it like? The inevitable interview question, like, okay, so is there anything else you want to share? And I was like, nah. Like, and I remember thinking later, like, why did I say no? Like, just say anything. Like, I think I was so burnt out, and admittedly, I think everyone was kind of burnt out in the room too, because, but yeah,
it was towards the end of the day, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was like the last thing of the day, because I think Mary had started that, like, okay, so this is the last interview, so let's, but no, like I said, I'm very glad that I made it on the team. I remember kind of feeling sad. I was like, man, I kind of bombed that interview. Should have. Darn it. But no, I was glad to make it on, and I had an amazing experience. And it was cool because I guess my origin story was I didn't really intend to be an orientation leader. So I guess we'll start with my orientation experience. It wasn't too bad. It was over winter, admittedly. I had gotten out of jury duty, so I was pretty excited about it. It was on the same day, and I was like, look, Sacramento.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't know, like, but then,
Right.
you know, once I told them, it's like pretty much, for all those out there, once you tell them you're a student, you're pretty much good to go. I'm going to get jury duty now that I said that, but no, so I was like, all right, it was cold, like, you know, the usual, like, I had no idea where I was supposed to be other than some building that's called the Union. I parked completely on the wrong side of campus. And then like kind of went through it. I admittedly, like, I knew the system for signing up for classes. So by the time the orientation leader got around to be like, all right, let's help you sign up, I already had a schedule. And I was like I kind of like did my own Hornet launch program. Like,
Okay.
I know what I need. And so it was like, for me, orientation wasn't too crazy. It wasn't a bad time, but yeah, then I got the email of like, hey, we're looking for chemistry students to be an orientation leader and like help out other chemistry students. And I was like, that sounds awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's what signed me up. Little did I know I was not going to be exclusively working with chemistry students the whole summer, but that's totally fine.
Yeah, that's a rare occasion.
Yeah, so I definitely am like, my recruiter lied to me. But no, I had a great time. And in fact, I think I enjoyed it far more not working only with my major. Plus I realized
it helped.
Plus there's not that many chemistry students. So
right. Yeah. It's nice to get to learn more about the other majors too. That's one of the nice perks about being an orientation leader, is you kind of get to dip your toes in the different ways that the departments work.
Yeah.
And I realized that my first summer, when I had one graphic design student in an entire, like a group of entirely different major. I think it was like maybe like a photo group, and then I had one interior design. So I took all of the photo students went to their department, and I stayed with the one interior design student. And it was basically like a one-on-one
like major
breakdown of what the major is. And I was like, wow, this is like very nice.
Yeah, I did that. I did that a couple days towards the end. Like, you know, you have your makeup day, and you know, not all the majors are available, like, because the department has to be there, and, you know, and generally folks have other lives. And so, yeah, I kind of had the same thing. Like, hey, I can't remember who hit me up, but they're like, we have like 2 chemistry students. Would you mind doing the major advising? And I was like, yeah, okay, sounds good. Here's my thing. And I was like, cool. And yeah, I was like, hey, so welcome to Sacramento State's chemistry department. I'm going to say on behalf of the chairman, like, yeah, because I was just the expert. Yeah, because I was just using the same PowerPoint. So I'm like, okay, well, this would be the part where they would normally introduce themselves. They're amazing folks. I'm here, so I'm going to introduce me. But no, it definitely was, I guess admittedly, it was a different job than I'd expected. But I loved it. I'm super excited to go back and work for.
I'm glad you're going back. I'm glad you're going. It's good. It's a good experience. It's nice to have a second summer to kind of also reflect on, especially personally, when you start to like reevaluate all the skills that you gained or all the skills that you have sharpened. It definitely does that to you. It introduces you to a whole new not sector, but like a new
tier
person who are like you.
I mean, you said it earlier. It is a different experience because straight up, you are. Last summer, I was a new leader, and now I'll be returning as a seasoned returning leader.
Right.
And so it will be a whole different experience, you know, like, and that's admittedly half of what I'm excited for. I mean, like, I love the job and everything, but like, man, get to meet a whole new batch of excited faces. Granted, it may only be over Zoom. Hopefully I'll get to see some of them in person somehow. We'll figure it out. But yeah, it'd just be interesting to see who, see some of my friends again, and see the new leaders that are coming onto the team.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts as a returner, is to get to see who made it on. It's great because it's, to a certain extent, you feel like it's your responsibility. Well, it is your responsibility as a returner.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah.
I ended up when I became a returner, I created almost like this group of new leaders that
Oh, that's
I
cool.
kind of almost like adopted.
Like a
So anytime
mentoring
that,
group.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we would have like sessions in my house where we would like practice our presentations,
Oh,
and
that's
they'd
cool.
like they'd stand in front of my
Yeah.
couch, and they're like, I'm so nervous. I'm like, just forget that
Yeah,
anybody
no
here. Just
worries.
like talk about, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was just me and four other leaders, and like I said, we'd come out, hang out in my house, do presentations, and I'd give pointers, and it was
Yeah.
wonderful. And then in that kind of relationship evolved after orientation, and it quite happens quite often. And it's very common that
Yeah.
that relationship of coworkers becomes a relationship of friendship,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it
Especially
grows.
in this
You
team
know.
where you're so, I mean, one, you're already close in as a team, and two, you really are
Hmm.
relying on each other throughout the day because, you know, you
Right.
might need like, hey, can you come into my Zoom? Or if you're in person, can you help out with a session real quick? Like, need some backup.
Right. Right.
Students are getting unruly.
Right.
But
And then when the students are gone, you get to like when you meet those leaders, or like when you talk to those, you find out that they're actually very similar to you. They have very similar values to you.
yeah,
They're very, uh, you know,
similar,
they're
but
very similar.
really unique.
Yes.
Because like I said, that's kind of
Yes.
what drove me to do this was we would do, oh my God, what were they called? Discover Sac State events.
Hmm. Right.
And I've switched back into chemistry mode since the summer ended. But you know, we do those events, and in a nutshell, you would like hop on Zoom, and new students could come in for those listening who aren't familiar. And you know, you learn about something like maybe how to excel, like on an online course, or you can meet up with other students from your area, so on and so forth.
Right.
And sometimes you didn't have students because sometimes it was early in the morning. And yeah, I would just kind of have like, I call them like rehearsal podcasts, because it would just be like a
Right. Yeah.
conversation with somebody, and you're like, dude, I did not know that. Like, I know Matthew's somebody I want to get on the show because like we could probably talk for days with his history knowledge. But just little things like
Matthew is
that. Yeah.
insanely intelligent. They're
Yes. Yes.
one of the smartest people I've ever met, and it was such an honor working with them for 2 summers in a row. Oh, they're wonderful people.
Yeah. No, it's a great family, and yeah, I think overall I'm just honored to be a part of it and to continue being a part of it. Yeah.
And I'm very happy for you. Uh, to go
I'm
back.
glad you got to be a part of it too. I don't mean to be like, yeah, I'm glad to
No,
still
right.
be here. Yeah,
I'm glad to
no,
be here.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that I was able to be there for 3 years. But
yeah,
the 3 years were very different experiences. It
hmm
definitely, like I said, taught me a lot about myself, my leadership skills, my
yeah,
social skills too. Um, but yeah, it's to kind of, I know recruitment season's over, but whoever is listening to this and is thinking about it and still has time, it's a job I would
yeah.
do over and over again, if I could. It's a wonderful thing.
Highly
Being part of that team.
suggest. Yeah, and yeah. I'll second that. I will back that up. StingersUp podcast approved. Is yeah, I think the recruitment time's over now. But maybe if you're really nice, no. But definitely for upcoming semesters, upcoming years, I would highly suggest to anybody, even if you're a new student or like myself, I transferred over, so I really didn't become an orientation leader until I was, you know, about to go into my senior year. So even if you're kind of at the end of the line or you're at the beginning of the line, we had some leaders who this was their first summer.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where you are in the college experience pathway, definitely check it out. Or if you don't have the option to become an orientation leader, you know, maybe you're doing stuff over the summer, support your local orientation leader.
Right, exactly. There you
Yes,
go. Give this
yes,
podcast a listen and share it. Um,
yeah,
share the story. It's a wonderful thing.
yeah,
And you know, it's nice that we get to have these conversations, and we get to support each other as not only previous coworkers but also as
yeah,
friends and supporters. So it's really fun. Like I know for a fact, Chris, like sometimes you know, I go back and think about all these that are created, whether that's professional connections, like talking about admirals, for example.
yeah,
Um, but knowing that if I'm in a time of need and I need friends to help me with something, no matter what it is, I can just go back on that Discord and be like, hey guys, I miss you so much. I need something.
yeah,
I know I know.
I was about ready to drive out to wherever Valoy lives, somewhere way far away from me to pick him up one day for work. Because I was like,
right.
hey, man, your car's broken. I'll already get up early. Let's do this. Like, hope you like to listen to Metallica in the morning.
Exactly. We're there for each other.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great knowing that you have a purpose and you're part of a team that really shares
one thing
great purpose.
I will say is I don't think we used the green and gold enough over the summer. Understandably so. It's kind of a weird thing to do on Zoom. But I was slightly I was like reminiscing. I was like, oh man, we didn't get to do that. But
Chris, the story of the green and gold, when Kendra and I knew that we became coordinators, it's almost like we have to train each other on how to separate, how to become supervisors. You know what I mean? Because after you're part of the team, it's like almost
it's become a little detached.
Training.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like a different training to become a supervisor, because now the people that you were friends with, you need to supervise. So that's the point where Kendra and I were having this conversation of okay, so this is obviously in the regular days, in the pre-COVID
before time.
In the before time. And so it was like, okay, Kendra, if it's a loud room, who's gonna do the honors of doing green and gold? And I opted out so fast. I was like, I can't do it. I can't. I absolutely despise the green. Not for any symbolic reason at all, but it was in one of my summers, it was completely overused. And so even if like there was like one conversation happening in the room, it would just be like, green!
And it's a call and response system for those. I don't know if I'm sharing too many orientation secrets now, but I realize it might not work if everyone knows it. But yeah, it's a call and response. So one party would say green, and the other party, upon hearing it, would say gold.
And stay quiet. Right.
Yeah, and I kind of took it as like, I actually didn't think of it as be a way of quieting down the room, though I realized that's how it was used. Mm-hmm. I kind of took it more as like, what if we were like, I look at it as more, I thought, hey, what if we had crowds of people and we just had to find each other? You know what I mean? Which it's kind of like
that. I mean, that could be one use of the call as well. Yeah. I mean, it's a response.
I had a tactical perspective on it. I was like, I see how we could use this, but but no, it was a great summer, and like I said, I think I've said this like 10 times on the podcast, but I'm super looking forward to continuing the experience. And
good. And I'm very excited to hear about the experiences that you guys have, especially as a summer that you're doing this all virtually. Because our summer, we to a certain extent, we were started, like I said, traditionally. We went like we did.
I mean, most of the training was all traditional. You know,
exactly.
like
and then we got to the summer, and it's like, okay, well, we need to figure it out. And it was cool because we got everybody's input. Because Kendra and I, you know, it's weird to kind of explain it, but had COVID not happened, we would just be following in the footsteps of all of the previous orientation leaders, because there's rules and there's kind of like traditions, there's things that we do and things we don't do.
Culture. I mean, there's really a culture on the team. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a timeline to everything. Mm-hmm. And then when COVID happened, like I said, all the rule book was chucked out the window. So it was just me and Kendra with only 2 months, because
because it was like March, and then everything had to be on the floor running by like end of May.
June.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we had like a very short amount of time. Keep in mind that we were both graduating that semester. So it was something else.
So much going on, so many different moving parts. Totally.
Exactly. So it was fun because we were able to, at certain times when training was happening, to include everybody's input. We got everybody's suggestions in. We got conversations going on about different scenarios that might arise. So it was good because that alone was a team builder as well. Yeah. So it wasn't just me and Kendra kind of laying down the foundations, but it was the 2020 orientation team as a whole setting up the very base
Yeah.
of doing online orientation.
I definitely think the team overall, but I hands down say you and the rest of the staff team, you guys did a spectacular job, because
Thank you.
all the orientation leaders did a great job, but like that wouldn't have really made much of a difference if we couldn't have had like a really good way to integrate this whole program into that online setting, So I think, everything, awesome job. Yeah. So to those also hopefully listening, Kendra, wherever you are, I'll have to get her on the show. But yeah, my hope is to get some new leaders eventually too. And
Kendra would be a great person to be on a show. I'd listen to Kendra's story.
like I said, I do the invites in batches, so like pick folks out and send out the text messages.
I'm excited. Yeah, I think. Well, you have a lot of editing to do for this one.
It's just gonna go right up as is. Like
just as is. I'd be down. That'd be fun.
I mean, yeah, it'll probably just go up as is, because I think we're at, probably should wrap it up not too soon from now, or else, speaking of short attention span, nobody's going to finish it.
Right.
But, oh my God, it's so blanked out. Something about the podcast. So this is the first blank out I've had on the podcast.
It's okay. There's a first for everything.
Yeah, no, the show has been great, and I've been loving having everyone on here. I'll just change the subject. And no, I'm definitely looking forward to getting more folks on here. I've been liking the project. Oh, editing. No, I think I'm just gonna throw it up as is. Like, why not? It's good conversation. I think it'd be weird in two parters, because then it'd be like at some spot in the second part where you'd be like, where did this start?
Right. We made a lot of references.
I think the key is timestamps. I need to get better with that. I need to put excuse me, timestamps on the description. So if you want to, because I try to throw in a little mini list of topics. And so like, let's say you wanted to go to, you weren't really interested in orientation. I don't know why you wouldn't be, but let's say you didn't need to know about that or whatever, but you really want to know about Mariam's take on record players, then you could go to that timestamp.
Right. There you go. That's smart, actually. I really like I'd appreciate that. I like that. I like that when I watch a YouTube video, and it's a really long YouTube video, and it's not in the description, but there's one great soldier who watched the whole video and timestamped it.
And he went through.
Yes. I went through the whole thing. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's an idea I've been mulling around, because a big part of this also has just been like this creativeness of like, what should I do? How should I film it? There's not really a template for like, this is how you do a podcast. So it's all just like I feel like I'm just sailing out in the ocean, and you're like, let's go. I know there's an ocean out there and stuff floats on it. Hopefully.
But it's nice because it's such a nice free form.
That's my goal.
It feels, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels really comfortable. It's a conversation that, kind of like we were talking, like you don't really notice the time fly. At least ideally.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I genuinely didn't. I checked my watch and I was like, what? We started a long time ago.
Yeah, Lola was the first episode where I actually had a time limit, because she had a schedule. So we had a set time. And so I was like, kept like panicking, looking at the thing, was like, yeah. But no, it's a great project, and I hope to keep it going. I figure we should probably wrap up the episode so we don't keep it going too long. So overall, I will say this has been a fantastic episode. I'm always a little nervous starting the episodes because you never know how they're going to go, but I haven't had a bad one yet. So, hopefully, I will
knock on wood.
For a while. Yeah. But no, it was a great episode. I would certainly love to have you on again sometime if you have some availability in the post grad.
Oh, like I said, I'm definitely unemployed. I will do this anytime that you want me to.
Sounds good. Yeah, maybe I can do like a Kendra episode, and then we'll get you both on. Do like a combo episode, or you can do like a record playing episode. Except we don't like to talk during music, so there probably wouldn't be much talking.
Well, we'll do snippets of
There we go.
2 seconds of Al Green just going.
We'll play guess the tune.
Right.
But no, it was a good episode. Definitely have to have you come on another time. Another shout out to Sacramento State, especially the bookstore. Like I mentioned, you can get Starbucks there. I don't know now, but you can definitely get Record Player, and you can get your favorite Sac State merch. I have my mug here. I know Mariam's
Nice.
shown off the sweater a couple times.
That's good. Oh,
There we
love
go.
this.
Sax Day. Oh, yeah, it's got the orientation. Do they sell those in the bookstore with the
Those
orientation?
portraits? No, the Saxby orientations were actually Mary Shepard's project. She
That's what I
made
thought.
them.
So you can
Yeah.
falsify your own, but you can definitely get a Saxate sweater.
Right.
Get all your favorite Saxate merch. Support the school. Support the podcast if you like it. Subscribe. I need to say that more in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So Mariam was a good episode, and to everyone
It was
listening.
wonderful.
I feel like I had one more thing I wanted to say on that ending, but I forgot. And to everyone,
but yeah.
Yeah, to everyone listening, wherever you are, on whatever device you might be, hopefully you're not driving. Or if you are, you're not watching a video.
Right.
Maybe you are. No judgments.
No judgment.
To everyone, have a good one. And of course, Stingers up.
Oh, we love that.